We have a problem. When you go into those auditions, the producer and the director has a problem. And what's the problem? They have to fill that spot with the best person they can possibly fill it with. You have to walk into that audition like, you know what? I am the solution to his problem. You're not begging for a part. You're saying, no, I belong here. If my audition is 5 minutes long, 6 minutes long, that's your time. You own that time.
Hey, actor, are you tired of sitting on the sidelines waiting for that next big part that is going to change your life? Stop it right now. In this episode, I sit down with the filmmaker who wasn't waiting anymore and decided to change his life, Mr. Bobby Mardis. Yes, he just said, that's enough. I'm going to take control of my life, and he did it. This isn't just an interview, but it is a masterclass for every actor who has been there and thought, is there more that I can do than this? Yes, there is. We deep dive into what it means to be an actor hyphen and how Bobby went from hustling for auditions to building his own empire by creating the work he wanted to see in the world. If it's your first time here, my name is Lydia Nicole, and this is Acting Smarter Now. What would you tell newer actors coming into the business today about forming relationships?
You know, relationships, though they're the most important part of acting. And you know, people always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. You got to know something. So it is what you know, but who you know is critical. And let me just say this. The project that I'm doing right now, it is a product of who you know. I won't go into a lot about what happened, but I'll just say sometimes when your parents call, after you're in this business a while, your parents call, and whenever they call, you have to go. You don't have to, but if you're a good person, you will go and help them. So I had to go to San Francisco and help my mom for a long time. She got sick and this, that, and the other. So I was out of the mix for a little while, but then I said, I got this inkling, like, I got to do something quick. I got to do something. And so 2 weeks ago, I thought of an idea. Today, I'm in Los Angeles shooting that idea. That's the power of friendship. I just got on the phone. Hey, I'm doing this thing about acting and about the side hustles. And as we know, in SAG, only 3% of 178,000 actors in SAG, I'm not even talking about the actors that's not in SAG, 3% make a living. So that means 97% of the actors in SAG have to do other things, drive Ubers, Lyft, all kinds of different things. So with that in mind, and it's not like you have to have a plan B, but it kind of is it's not a plan B, it's a survival mode. You know, when you go to Los Angeles or New York, those are expensive places to go. And even in Atlanta, where things are popping, it's expensive to live. So sometimes actors need side hustles to get things going. But with friendships and connections, you know, I used to go to these, this is old school. I used to have a pencil and paper, a little pad, and I used to write down, so you're, okay, it's your name is in your email and this, that, and the other, and write it down and keep it. Now, I still do that to this day. And let me tell you why. In fact, an actor, I was talking to him. I said, oh, wait a minute, hold on. Let me get my pencil. And he goes, pencil? How old are you? And I had to laugh. And I said, hey, listen, I got my phone at this place one day. I was doing some networking, and I logged away about 15 different people. But I forget, this is the first time I used this program. I think it's Bink or Blink or something. And I logged them away, and I saw we tapped our phones, and I saw their picture. It's like, oh, I got you. Okay, thanks a lot. I did that about 14 more times. When I got home, nobody. And I said, what happened? And I called up some friend. I said, panic mode. What happened? They said, well, did you go and create or save the file? I was like, it was already in there. It's like, no, you got to save it. So I did not do the pencil thing and right at that time. So now I don't care if it's in here or not. I'm creating the files. But my point really is technology changes, methodology changes. You know, Lydia, you have your own show, and you didn't have to call ABC and beg for it and walk in with knee pads and please give, you just did it. And that's where we are now. And what internet means today is rapidity. It's rapid, it's fast. Like I said, I thought of this idea 2 weeks ago, and here I am doing your, and you actually did the interview for me and say, hey, let's do a podcast too. So things move rapid here.
Piggybacking off of it's who you know, it's also who knows you in the business,
Yes.
right? Because you can know a lot of people, but they have to know you. There has to be a trust factor that they know your talent. They know your ability. They know if I call Bobby Mardis to help me on a project, he's going to deliver the goods.
Yes.
How important is it for you as an artist to know your craft?
That's the foundation of the definition of you. You know, a lot of people from all over the world come to Los Angeles to make it as a star, whether it be dancing, singing, acting, even a DP. People come here because this was the mecca of motion picture television. So you have to start with your craft. No, and see, the thing is, even if you are in Utah or wherever, in Paris or whatever, you can use that as your foundation to learn the stuff. By the time you get to Los Angeles, you should hit the ground running because you know your stuff. You know how to act, and knowing how to act. I have to say this is that you should read up on writing. You should read up on directing. You should read up on acting. And when I say read up on it, there's certain books that you have to know. When at one time there was a bookstore in Hollywood called Samuel French. It was on Sunset Boulevard, and then there was Larry Edmonds on Hollywood Boulevard. Larry Edmonds, I think, is still here. But Samuel French, even when I didn't have a dime, I would go. And the thing is, I went to school and this, that, but we'll talk about that later. But when I didn't have discretionary funds to buy the books, I would go into Samuel French. I would pull out the book, Uta Hagen, Respect for Acting, whatever. And then I would sit down and I would be reading the book. And I would just take book after book until they would kick me out. They did say, hey, sir, you got to buy the books. You can't just sit here and read the books. So, but when you're struggling in Hollywood, you do what you have to do. And you could go to libraries. There's the Margaret Herrick Library on, I think that's La Cienega, and you can go get all these books. So you don't have to really buy the books at the bookstores. But I eventually went back to buy them because I wanted to refer to some of these books, maybe before an audition, this, that, and the other. The books that are writing will actually give you great insight as to acting too. Like Christopher Vogler, The Journey Within. It tells you certain things. Robert McKee's Story. There's John Truby. You get all the acting books too, but the other books will help you fill in the gaps.
They help you with the script analysis portion of it.
Absolutely, because you have to break your character down, even if it's your sides. When you go, when someone gives you your sides, you have to know what happened before the scene, what happened after the scene, so you know how to go into it and how to leave out of it. So it's like crazy important, even for the director to direct you. If sometimes directors, they won't say something simple like, can you raise your voice? They'll say, there's Grand Central Station. Your apartment's right here. You need to tell that person at the other end of Grand Central Station something. So you raise your window up and you tell them. So now you have a basis of, say, talk louder or whatever, but it's now coming from another place. So sometimes you're not actually, we want you to use your creativity too. I'm direct now as well, but we want you to use your creativity because sometimes we rely on the actors to do that. So we have a problem. When you go into those auditions, the producer and the director has a problem. And what's the problem? They have to fill that spot with the best person they can possibly fill it with. You have to walk into that audition like, you know what? I am the solution to his problem. You're not begging for a part. You're saying, no, I belong here. And if my audition is 5 minutes long, 6 minutes long, that's your time. You own that time. I always say, look, do the best you can possibly do and then leave and forget about it. If it's right for you, you're going to get it. And some things just aren't right for you. We all want every part to be right for us. I should have that part. I should do this. But, maybe you're too tall, you're too short, maybe you don't have the right essence, maybe you lost all your hair, whatever it is, if it's for you, God will give it to you.
I'm a big believer of that. I think the more you know what it is that you sell, when you read the sides or when you read the script, this is my role or this is not my role. I like to compare it to going to a clothing store, right? And you're trying on clothes, and there's certain clothes that you put on and they fit perfectly. They just fit. And then there are other clothes that you go, well, it could fit if I tuck it in here, if I, bring the sleeves up, if I do this. And actors have to understand that a director is looking for what is tailor made for you, not what they have to struggle to put you into.
Absolutely.
I think the more actors can understand that, the more at ease they can be. It's like, okay, I'm going in for this role. I know I can do it. And then do the best you can, right? Bring in the hottest choices you can. Wow, everybody. Not because you're so fabulous, but because you really did your work and you did not leave any gap in your work. You gave them everything you had. And then you walk out, and that was the job. It's like the audition is the job. If you get the job on top of that, then great. It is great. But that audition, you never know. You might not get that job, but they loved what you did. You weren't right for that thing. And so, but they were thinking of you down the road. And how many times did you audition and then it wasn't that part, but they kept calling you back in because they liked what you were doing? They're like, Bobby, come on in. It's like they believe in you. They know you're going to deliver the goods. So they feel at ease. We're bringing you in to meet everybody at the table.
Absolutely. And I think that if you create or make your intention, and that, your emotion, your intention, if there are discoveries, you make your discoveries and you go 100% in that direction. And even if you made that choice and you go into that direction, if you go 100% and the director likes what you did, but it was the wrong direction, then the director or the casting director or the producer, who's ever in the room, will then see that this person has something, and let me redirect her in this scene and tell her or him to go the other direction. They know that they can redirect you, but if they have to pull you up to a performance level, they probably won't. They'll just say thank you.
How important is it for the actor to take that adjustment and deliver it in that room or on Zoom?
It's very important because you have to hear what the director is saying. The reason why you have to hear what they're saying, even if they tell you to do something ridiculous, because they want to know that you're directable. Because when they get on the set and there's, millions of dollars worth of equipment, even if it's a short, and we're battling time, money, everything has to come in on time and on budget. So we're thinking about that. And so if a director says, hey, look, I love what you did, but try this, because it might have been perfect, but the director knows in the middle of the night when they're editing and they can't say do it this way or that way, because what is on film is on film or tape or digital, new wave stuff. If they give you a different direction, at least they can say, hey, I got another take over here. Let me see that take. Pull that up, editor. Or sometimes the director edits too. So you pull that up, and that's the energy that we wanted, that right there. So you have to be able to go for what you know and do it the way you've trained to do it. But if the director says do it another way, be open enough to try it that way. So it's important.
I'm going to go back to side hustles because that is something that you are living in at the moment as part of your next project. Side hustles for actors, and I would throw in the writers, I would throw in the directors, I would throw in all the creative artists that are working on their craft, working on becoming the next whoever, but they need to make that money. So
Yes.
what have you learned about side hustles for creatives that were not available when we started in this business?
There are some actors who do side hustles, but they want to stay in the industry. So what I did was I learned how to edit, and it was interesting because actors have a catch 22 problem. The catch 22 problem is I need to be available to go on an audition at any time the casting director or my agent says go on that audition. But if I do that and I'm at a bank or whatever, usually I'll come late because just because your appointment is at 3 doesn't mean you're going to get in at 3 or 12 or noon because you have an hour lunch. You could come back an hour and a half later after lunch. So usually those actors get fired off those jobs after about 3 or 4 times of doing that. So I've learned that some actors stay in a certain area of entertainment, which is what I did. As I said, so you learn how to do other things. I was talking to Ted Lange the other day. I went to San Diego to get interview him.
And Ted Lange is an actor director who started back in the 70s, and one of his biggest roles of that time was The Love Boat.
Absolutely, Love Boat. He did That's My Mama, and he's the epitome of a theater actor. His whole thing is Othello and this, and I mean he's Mr. Theater, flat out. But he wanted to stay in. When times were a little low for him, it will get low for everybody. It's a roller coaster. He went and did stuff with lighting in the theater. He would be the sound guy. He would build set. He would do everything, but he kind of stayed in a certain vein. It's not like he went out and drove cabs or whatever. Actually, there's two generations of actors. The older generations may drive a cab or whatever. The new generation of actors may do Lyft or Uber Eats. There's a lot. People who work at Starbucks or any coffee shop. Some people are beautiful actresses, may work at a department store as these cosmetic counters where they try the sprays and put on makeup and all that kind of stuff. People have done that. I mean, you do whatever you have to do. Some people walk dogs. Some people, they're models. I have another person who trains people in riding horses. That's Reginald T. Dorsey. People come out to his ranch and he just he trains people how to. He'll train actors who have like a western or something, and he'll train executives. He'll train anyone who wants to learn how to ride a horse. And so he's done all kind of these rodeos and stuff. But you kind of look at your skill set and say, okay, well, how can I translate this into money? So that because on the first, rent is always due, and people don't want to hear, well, I got a residual coming, and because sometimes residuals don't equal what you think they will. Now, in commercials, you can get some nice residuals, but sometimes after your series or your show or your under fives go on, let me tell you, sometimes it gets so low. I went to the bank, and sometimes I collect the residuals until they equal something. I won't just go to the bank with $1.50 residual. I've gotten residuals for zero. The stamp was more than the damn residual. So I collected about 15 residuals, and I go into this bank. I just gave the person my residuals, and she goes, "Oh, Universal. Oh, Warner Brothers. Oh, MGM. That was Robert Townsend's. Oh, I all this." And then she put it through the machine that added up all the figures, and she looked it up and says, $17.20. And well, what do you do? I actually had to bust out laughing because, she's like, the janitor makes more than you. What do you do? And I said, those are residual checks. Sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. It just depends on the luck of the draw. But they keep coming. And so you need that 12, 15, $20 to pay a light bill or whatever. But side hustles are critical to have those side hustles. And if you can do a side hustle that and maybe you play piano. well, then you go be a piano teacher or whatever you do. Sometimes actors are musicians. I interviewed a person Victor Orlando, who is a Congo player, and he's paid with everyone, Cameo and all these people, but he's also an actor. And so it's always good when you can go and do something else. Sometimes you need to do something else to take you out of this emotional roller coaster. When I was just editing, what I would do is I would edit all day and then I would control S or save. And then I could go on this audition and come back. And in the middle of the night when there's no auditions, I would just continue editing. So you do stuff that's kind of flexible for you so you can survive. And you need those checks to do that too. So, but people can do anything. If it's something that you love to do, it's even easier. I wake up and write. It's not, oh man, I got to go to work. If people say, Bob, when are you going to retire? I was like, never. I said, I am going to die either acting, writing, or directing. That's my life. I don't ever want to stop. Why would I? I love this. I don't love the stuff in the middle where it's like, man, will I ever be hired again? This, that, and the other. But, and new people are coming, graduating every day, coming in from various countries to one Mecca. So you go on an audition and there's 100 people look just like you. So then you have to figure out, okay, let me do something different. Let me stand out. How can I stand out? What do I have to do to get the eye and the imagination of that director or producer or who's ever in there to have them notice me? So you really have to think about those things. I mean, coming dressed in character or doing something a little off. If you hear through the door they're doing the same line the same way, then maybe you should change up a little bit. Maybe you should look at the subtext of the actual script or sides and say, maybe I can put something else in there that's not that. Some directors want you to go line for line. Some don't care. I know Robert Townsend, he wanted you to use his creativity. So he didn't care if you improved a little bit. In fact, some scenes you had to improv, but he wanted to use the energy of the actor and all that the actor brought. When you do readings, it's like if you did a reading of a play, the writer will sit down and listen. I used to tape the readings when I have the actors, but it's like, this is what I wrote. Now, this is what I think. You tell me what you think, and I would see it. Sometimes there's discoveries that actors would bring to parts in the readings that, oh, I didn't even think of that. Oh, yes, that joke and this. And sometimes the subtext, the expressions, and all the different things that actors bring color to a script, and the palette of colors that they bring. It's important to hear it from an actor's perspective because the writer may see other gold in what they're doing. And the bottom line is the writer's going to get credit for whatever that actor does anyway. I remember Spielberg, he was on a set and he went to the craft service table, and the craft service person, now that's the person making the peanuts and the chips and the drinks. He said, wouldn't it be interesting if you had a shot on top of that building going down? You would think the Spielberg would say, wait a minute, my name is Spielberg. I don't need the craft service. And this is a story he told. He thought about it. He's like, you know what? That's a good idea. Now, he's not going to listen to everybody every time. But what happens is the director is going to get the credit for it anyway. The writer is going to get the credit for it anyway. But when the people sit down in the audience, guess what? You don't see the DPs, the directors, the producers. It's all actor. So whatever the actor does, the actor gets credit for that, regardless if they improv the line or they made other choices. And the little choices mean a lot, especially on film. I was in a play once called Guys and Dolls, and I was nicely behind Nathan. I would pull out a banana in my pocket and I would start to eat the banana. I'd take sneak a little bite, and I would eat it. And the audience would just be laughing and laughing. And then one day he turned around because he wanted to know what the hell are people laughing at. When he saw me, he was actually quite angry with me. He goes, I thought those were my laughs, and you took these laughs away from me, and you're upstaging me, and this, that, and the other. But it's the little things that you do that could, and actually, Lydia, you were saying, Bob, make sure your background doesn't have all this stuff in it, because you don't want to draw the attention to these different things. So movement on stage draws attention. So people may not be looking at the lead. They may look at this person eating a banana, and the person shouldn't have been eating a banana on stage. But you do what you do to stand out.
Absolutely. For me, side hustles aren't for you to survive, they are for you to thrive while you are pursuing your career. So, that if you have steady income coming in, you can make better choices as an actor, right? You don't have to take everything that comes in. If you have a regular paycheck from whatever, be it Uber, be it Instacart, be it editing, be it photography, whatever it is. If you know I got money coming in, I don't have to take that acting job that's going to make me look like an idiot,
Mhm.
when that's not how I want to portray myself. And I think that we don't spend enough time talking to other artists about their side hustle and keeping that side hustle, so that even when times are good, they have other income to keep their bank accounts full. Because acting costs money. Any art you do is an investment. It costs money, and unless you're making a lot of money, you're putting more out. There's more expenses than there is income. So for artists, and they don't talk to you about this in acting schools or classes. They don't tell you the basics. And one of the things that I learned when I first got here, maybe the first 2-3 years of being out here pursuing a career in acting, was the working actors were very frugal. The ones that I met, they were very frugal because they understood the ups and the downs of the business, that they could have steady income for 6 months and then not work again for a year. Not because they weren't good, but because their part wasn't up yet. And so that side hustle is so important. And it is so wonderful to hear you talking about taking what you already know and making that your side hustle. Because, first of all, you love what you're doing. So if you have a knack for editing, or you have a knack for writing, or polishing somebody's script or their stand up, or doing self tapes. I know actors who make their living doing self tapes for others. They come to their house, they shoot them, they upload the video to wherever it's got to go, and they make their money and they keep going, and they're able to do well for themselves and still get to audition and book work, and not have to worry about, am I going to pay the rent this month? Oh my God, do I have to get a roommate? Oh my God, do I have to, turn my car back in? That they're able to maintain a lifestyle that allows them to pursue their acting without losing momentum, because there's nothing more stressful than not having money to pay your bills as an actor. And you can't be creative if you are shut down thinking about the money.
Absolutely. It's like it's a side hustle, but it's really a survival hustle. Acting costs money. If you want to stay good or stay sharp, you have to stay in class. If you're not working, you have to be in class. Otherwise, you can't get one part a year and expect to be a great actor. It's impossible to be in front of your mirror in your bathroom, do the part, because you're relating to you, a reflection of you. You need to rate to other actors because other actors are going to give you other stimulus, and you have to respond to that stimulus. So it is very hard to act one time, and you need that acting class. Now, acting class costs money. I mean, maybe you can get actors together and have your own thing, and that would be cool too. I look at it like this: actors have to be a great money manager. Now, what does that mean? Okay, if this line right here is a comfortable line to live, sometimes you are going to get a lot of money on various parts, and sometimes you're going to make no money or some money, a little money. So the objective is when you make a lot of money, it's not off to Vegas, ooh, ooh, party. It's like, no, save it, because you know it's going to rain. So if you want to stay living comfortable in a normal line, you make money, you save it because you know it's coming. Eventually it's going to come. So because our careers are like little waves, up and down. So if you're a good money manager, so you might not be able to do everything you want. My grandfather used to say, don't get on the horse before it's time. And I was like, grandfather, what does that mean? That means don't live like these other stars, because you can't afford it. And actors all fear, there's like, I know for a fact there's three words that they fear. They fear rap, hiatus, and cancel. All those words means you're not working no more. And some actors, I know some actors who are on series, and it was party because every week or two they would get their checks and this, that, and the other, and it would be a nice check. But when the series was canceled and you weren't using the deposit slips anymore, they were all withdrawal slips, and you were still living like you were on a series. At one point, it hits the fan and you're looking at your balance, and oh my god, I can't do what all the other people do because they're still on the series and yours got canceled. But you want to front a little bit, but that's a bad thing. I did that once, and I was like, oh yeah, Bob, we're going to such and such. I was like, I knew how much money I had, and all right, let's go. So I went. I spent my rent money. It's the only time in life I had to call home and said, Mom, I hate to say this. I know I went to college. I went to UCLA. Then I went to USC. I went to American Academy. I have all this stuff, but can I borrow some money? And so it was so humiliating, especially for a guy, to do that. And I know women, go through that too. But for a guy, you're supposed to be you're supposed to have money and you're supposed to do this, that, and the other. That's the last time I ever did that. I said, I will never be in that position again. So what I did is I saved appropriately. I saved and saved. Even when I could go out and, party, I didn't. And actors can most of the time find free stuff. That's what we did. It was like, oh, they're having where's the hors d'oeuvre table? We would find stuff to eat and this, that, and the other.
Oh, yes. Talking about eating free stuff. I remember my early years acting. We would get the LA Times and go through openings, the LA Times and the LA Weekly, and we would go through the openings of galleries. And then we would circle what galleries were near each other that were opening the same day. And we would go eat the hors d'oeuvres, go to the next one, eat the hors d'oeuvres, go to the next one, eat the hors d'oeuvres. Or my favorite was going to Sizzler. Like three of us would go to Sizzler. We would pool our money. We would buy one plate. And we would share the plate. Okay, it's your turn. You take it up to we get the meal, but the bar was all you could eat. So
Right.
we divvied up the regular meal, whatever it was that we decided on, the baked potato and the steak, and we would cut it into three, and we feasted on the buffet. Or you had friends who worked in restaurants that would give you a free plate. They say, if you come between this time and this time, we give you some pizza, or we give you, this, or come towards the end of the night when they get ready to dump the food, I'll give you some food to take home. So you figured out, that to me is survival. Is you're
Yes.
figuring out, okay, where can I get the meal for today? Because I only have $10 and it's either gas or food. I want to go back to, you came from Indiana
Mm-hmm.
to Los Angeles. Tell me that story.
Well, I grew up in a small town, Hammond, Indiana. It's right next to Gary. And you know Gary because all the Jackson Five came from Gary. And both cities are like sister brother cities. And there was a steel mill. My dad worked in the steel mill. There was that 30,000 workers who worked there. And when robotics came in, they got rid of 25,000 and 5,000 people would just be pushing buttons. That's when robotics. It's going to be the same thing during AI. Mark my word. Machines are running. In fact, the place I'm staying at now, my friend Dwayne, he ordered something to eat, and a little, it's like a container with wheels on it, came from Westwood and it came up and it says you have 10 minutes before we take that away. So you come and you put it in your phone and it opens up. So that got rid of delivery people. So at one point, Uber Eats may have all these stuff. So the place I was from, you're there and you move basically. So but one day there was an overview of, it was UCLA, and they had an overview during basketball. It was snowing outside in Indiana, freezing, and I saw women on the beach, Santa Monica, with bikinis on. And I asked my mother, I was little, I was like, they have bikinis on. Oh, it doesn't snow in California. It doesn't snow. Maybe in the mountains, but it doesn't snow. And I said, well, I want to go to UCLA. And I had that in my mind all throughout elementary, high school. I said, okay, I'm going to UCLA. I was offered other schools. I was like, no, UCLA. And it was a stupid reason, bikinis and sun and whatever. So I ended up actually there. But it was a small town, and ironically, when people see you on television from a small town, they think you're rich. And I try to, like, oh, no, do you know what the word scale means? If you're lucky, double scale. If you're really lucky, triple scale. I said that we're not rich. When Robert had this one scene in Hollywood Shuffle, and the line was, there's always work at the post office. Postal workers make more money than majority of actors. I think the average act was like $50,000, or for the working actors. But and I'm not talking about the Will Smiths $20 million,
Right,
because
right,
there's very few of
right,
those
right.
people
But people
out
who
there.
can earn a living at their craft. Yes.
Right, right. So we have to get used to that. But anyway, so I went to UCLA, and I started to do all my stuff there.
So now, when you were at UCLA, were you taking acting, or what did you go to UCLA for?
I was going to be a dentist.
Oh, okay.
And so I got in there, and I did well in high school, and I got my little A's and B's. And right now, I think UCLA, you try to get in there, is 4 point something. So you better have some extra points to get in there. But I got in, and I ran track for UCLA. But at one point, like I said, I went in as a dentist. But in high school, I used to do little film clubs and stuff like that. We'd have 16 millimeter, or the high eight, and different. Whoever had a camera, we started a club, and we would just do certain things. And so I had film in my mind a long time ago, but I didn't know it was a real profession that you could make money. Even though we all had television, somebody was making money doing that. So it was the dental thing. And then one day I went to McGowan, and I looked at a play. McGowan is the theater at UCLA. I looked at it and I was like, man, that's cool. I think And then in LA, you're surrounded by actors, and you go to Fat Burger for a burger, and the actors are talking about, so what do you do? You're act. Oh, okay. And so eventually, I did something, and the bug hit me. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be an actor. Then I called my mother up. I'm gonna switch from communication to acting. And then, over my dead body kind of thing. Actually, she said, I'm not paying for that shit. So I said, all right, all right, all right. I'll, I'll pick something else. And so then that's what I told her. Okay, I'm going to be in communications. I'll go out of dentistry, and I'll do this. Even though with dentistry, we had chem classes and biology classes and all the sciences, and I was doing well, but it kind of wasn't in my heart. And I knew that it wasn't right for me, because at one point I ran the 400-meter hurdles, and so I had to go into the trainer, and he sat down, and I had something on my foot, something wrong with my foot, going over the hurdles and this thing. I think I wore the wrong spikes. They were larger than they should have been. He goes, oh yeah. So the guy is sitting down talking to me. He's like, you know what? We may have to refer you to a doctor, because they may have to cut right here. And as soon as he said cut right there, all I remember was people were around me with oxygen tanks. I was fainted. So I said, I can't be no, because you see blood every 5 seconds with the dentist. And so I said, okay, it's probably not for me. So I switched up. So I'm taking communication, this, that, and the other. So my degree is like communication and SC advertising, but still I wanted to make sure that I had some foundation. So I would take there was a syntaxis theater, and I started to do some theater to really get my bearings on real acting. And then after that, I went to American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
And what got you into USC?
It was UCLA, and then it was USC. And at one point, I had to stop running track. And the reason why I stopped running track, I said, okay, in high school, I was the athlete of the year. I was never in any PE class. It was always a sport. Wrestling, went to state in wrestling. I did 400-meter hurdles. Actually, it was 330 in high school. But anyway, I did a high jump. I did all the relays and all that mile relay. In fact, we still have the record for the mile relay at San Mateo High. But when you get to college, now it's a Division I. And so all the best of the best, just like the best or actors come to Los Angeles, it was the best track runners are in Division I. And so I only got first one time. I was getting thirds and sometimes fourths. And sometimes I didn't even place because now the top of the top are there. And then I had to have a come to Jesus talk with myself. It's like, okay, Bob, are you world class? You have to say who you are. If you're not world class, able to go to the Olympics, then you're wasting time. So even though I loved it, it was me. So I had to say, I better start my acting career and my entertainment career because I can get a kickstart on that, or I can stay doing something that I'm not going to ever get to the top again. And when I say that, it's not to down yourself. I had to look at my physical attributes. Like Edwin Moses was the guy at the time. I mean, he would never lose. He would 13 step. I'm shorter than him, so I'd have to 15 step. It's like a big truck has a big wheel, and I had a smaller wheel, a Toyota wheel, and I would have to work faster and harder to do that rotation. He could just, so I had to then learn how to alternate in terms of that. But the real point of the story is I stopped my track so I can concentrate on acting. And so at USC, they had these shows called Evening of Soul, where you can act and you can write skits. You can do all of these things. I could sing too, so I would be singing, and sometimes I would do clubs singing. And so therefore, that solidified, this is where I want to go. This entertainment thing, just to hear the audience. And there's the audience, there's you, and there may be a band or something, or your material. All the stuff you got, applause, even boo, it's yours. You got it. That's yours. You better live with it. And this, that, and the other. So that's how I got interested in acting.
It's funny. I love doing this podcast because people that I know for a long time, I get to know more of while I'm researching. And I researched you in preparation for this interview. And I found out that you did a record with one of the people that I adored, Kashif, and it was a hit. You actually were on the charts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was an interesting thing, also related to acting, because I had a manager who was a bad guy. I could have been a part of that Me Too movement because it was just crazy. He was one way and I wasn't. And but he got me this record deal. And when he got me this record deal, it's like, hey, let's go to Hamburger Hamlet on Sunset and let's celebrate. Well, I didn't drink because I was an athlete. I didn't drink, smoke, do anything, nothing. And he said, hey, we're going to celebrate getting you this record deal. And so he kept ordering this thing called Stolish Nye, which is like
Oh
a
my
vodka.
God.
And it's like, if you like what I did for you, you'll drink that and this, that, and the other, and we'll celebrate. I was like, well, I don't really do that and this, that, and the other. And he's like, he kept badgering. So I took it. Okay. Never be pressured into anything. All you actors out there, just live your own truth. Never be pressured. I'll just say that, as I'm going to tell you something just the opposite. And so I took a drink of this stuff, and I could get dizzy off of something way less than that. Because one time I drank a beer, and I was like, okay, I'm out of it. I got to leave. So I took this drink, and he's like, oh yeah, you got to come back to the house. Follow me to Hollywood. And I was like, even drunk, I was like, that don't sound right to me. So he went left to go to Hollywood, and I went right to go back to West LA. And so I was like, nah, even you know what you're doing. Eventually, I had to release him as my manager. You will get into situations like this, especially the women. But now we're in a certain society where that will happen to men as well. But you just have to know who you are with a strong foundation, moral, ethical fibers foundation of who you are, and and so you'll live better once you know yourself. So anyway, so I have this record. So there's a I went and recorded it. It was cool. There was a gentleman named Gene Griffith. He was out of the Sound of New York. That was the record company, Sound of New York. And so I had this thing, but then Gene, one day someone calls me and says, your master is in Gene's office and we wanted to do X, Y, and Z. However, the IRS had put latches on the door for something he did or didn't do. Probably didn't pay his whatever. So now I'm sitting here with a record and I can't even get to the record. So then I called my friend and I said, and this is part of the ups and downs of entertainment. I said, listen, Kashif gave me this song. And now some of you who may not know Kashif, he did Evelyn Champagne King, Love Come Down, Ooh, You Make My Love. You know her. Howard Johnson,
So fine,
Blow My
so
Mind,
fine, blow my mind.
baby, baby, baby. Absolutely. So I had this goal from Kashif, and I said, man, I got to re-record it. So I called my friend Larry Robinson, and Larry Robinson, I said, listen, can you? And he did from Vanessa Williams. He did some remixes on Prince and Michael Jackson. All these people. It's who you know. Once again, I said, can you re-record this? And so I own another master, and he goes, yeah. So we re-recorded it, and we kept the Kashif feel and all that stuff in it. He actually then called Corey Robbins at Profile Records, and Corey Robbins says, I like this song. Let's go. So we signed agreements and all that, and he put the song out, and then it was doing well. And then I saw one day I looked at Billboard. That's where the music industry, the records come out, and it had a circle around it, and that meant with a bullet. Bullet means it's going up. So and then it went to Europe. And to this day, people still, if you Google Bobby Mardis, keep on, and you see it on there, and you'll see a lot of European, all these DJs, and they remix it with other songs, and it was just I was on cloud nine. I didn't do another song. They picked up some other artists, and so I'm what they call a one hit wonder kind of thing. So, but I do have some other things I'm going to do with that. But that helped me do what I needed to do, and that was a part of my hustle too. Is that at one point when I got out of school, I was in American Academy of Dramatic Arts, but nobody was seeing me but the people in the classroom, which I love those people in the classroom. I have a picture of my graduating little class, and it was great. We do all kinds of stuff, and I was sing there too, Annie, and I mean theatrical songs and stuff like that.
So you got an album, you're doing your acting, you're pursuing your creativity. How do you get into stand up?
That's part of the story because I was in this thing and nobody saw me. So I said, I need to write a routine and then go to Comedy Store. And so I wrote a routine. And so now people are seeing me. And now you have to be comfortable with yourself. Your first maybe 10 times up. And when I said what you get on from that mic, it's the audience, it's the mic, and it's you. Whatever you get from that audience is yours. So at first it was tough because it's very frightening to get up on that stage and try to evoke laughter when you've never done it before, unless it's in a play or something. So I did, people laughed. Then you get hooked on that. I would go to the Improv, I would go to the Comedy Store, and then all these other clubs, and I got better and better and better and better. You weren't making a lot of money at the Comedy Store. They give you $20, this, that, and a lot of times you started off, they weren't giving you anything. So, but some nights I would do comedy at other places. You get $50 here, maybe 75, and then I would go to my car and take off my comedy clothes, which is nothing, your jeans and shirt and stuff, and then I would put some singing clothes on, and then I would go to clubs and sing. And so, if on a good night, maybe I make $100, if that. I would do shows at the Roxy. My name was on the marquee. Roxy, Bobby Mardis. I went out and I took a picture of it and then ran back in the club. I was like, my name is on. Also, there was a place called Carlos and Charlie's.
Oh my God. Yes. I worked at Casablanca, which was across the street from Carlos and Charlie. So we called that our cafeteria. We ordered our food from Carlos and Charlie's every day. So yes. And the woman uh who owned it, her and her husband, but she was actually Joan Rivers' sister. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that. All I knew is one day I was performing at Carlos and Charlie's and I saw my name on the marquee. Of course, I went out and took a picture of that, and Joan Rivers was performing. It was like, was it Bob Saget? No, Bob Mardis. There was a couple people, but Joan Rivers was in big, bold. I was like, I'm on the same thing with Joan Rivers. Look at her. So actually, look at me. So so those are some of the days. I remember I did this one show, and Keenan and Robert came, and I was like, oh yeah. And then I think Keenan said to me, "So you think you're a star, huh?" It was like it was hilarious. It's like, but those are people who actually from doing stand up. That's how I met Robert. From
Okay.
doing stand up.
So now you go into Hollywood Shuffle. And what did you learn doing Hollywood Shuffle? Because that was something nobody was doing at that time. I mean, you could do a showcase, you could perform at, you could perform stand up, you could perform at clubs doing your singing, but no young Black actor was like saying, hey, I'm gonna do a movie, you want to come and play, you want to come and be part of this. That was not the norm, because there were a lot of gatekeepers in Hollywood, and there were certain gates you had to cross in order to get to do a film.
Absolutely. What Robert did was actually quite monumental. Nobody was doing it. I remember Rob saying, "Hey Bob, I'm doing a film on Saturday. You wanna come and be in it?" And I was like, "How much money do I make?" He said, "Nothing." I said, "Good, let's go," because we just wanted to act on film. And you're right; these gatekeepers are like, no, 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 for whatever reason, no, no. And I think Robert was like, "Hey, man, I heard so many no's until let's go." And I think Keenan co-wrote that with Robert. They got together, and Robert called. I think it's like 86 actors were in that film, and it was a ton of actors. And I think SAG may even gotten pissed off at Robert because you use 86 of our actors, and he says, "Yeah, they wasn't working." So and so at the time, I think rappers and all these other people were doing their thing. Whoever had a following, like a musical following or whatever, they would get the parts. All those people, but Robert's like, "Yeah, let's go do this thing." And so it was so monumental what he was doing. We knew the gravity of it, but we were so into the moment until we just would do the thing, whatever. Say, okay, you're gonna dance and you're gonna do this, you're gonna pay a pimp, you're gonna pay a pimp zombie, you're gonna pay, and we're in an audition room, and so he had all these different scenes of basketball scenes and this, that, and the other. And it was all about how we were treated as actors, Black actors in Hollywood, and this, that, and the other. So we did it. It wasn't even like a film. It was fun. We were having a great time. Oh, there's a camera there. Peter, this guy behind, he's the DP. He was shooting us and stuff. And so Robert knew where. I don't know how he knew all the people, because I think this was his first film project, and he just knew who to call. He knew who to call, and eventually people came on the set, and we got it done. It
Yes.
took a little while, and I think he did Hollywood Shuffle before Spike did She's Gotta Have It, but then Spike came
Spike
out
came
with
out first.
yes, he came
Yes,
out first.
yes. He was the first one out the gate, but Robert was working on that project before. What I want to ask you is, how did Hollywood Shuffle influence you as you're actor, you're a singer? Something happens where you start switching over to go, okay, I think I want to direct, I want to write, I want to do this. When did that connect for you? Because you were doing stand up and you were acting and you were singing. But when did the filmmaker Bobby Mardis happen?
I think that happened partly because I was watching Robert. I wasn't saying anything like I want to be that too. I just would watch Robert when I wasn't on camera, seeing how he moved and this, that, and the other, and also coupled with the lulls in getting parts. So I would get a part here and then nothing. I get a part there and then nothing. And so at one point, I think most actors will say, these people, casting directors, agents, producers, directors, they're controlling my life. I'm like a puppet. I work when they say. And at one point, you have to take control of your career. And I said, well, how can I take control of my career? Actually, one day at the Comedy Store, I would always wait to watch Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney was the last person on every night. And I would be tired. I would sit there. It's like, no, he's history. We didn't know he was history at the time. But I just said, this guy, he was fearless. He would say anything he wanted to. So I would wait until Paul was off and then I would leave.
Let's just give a little history of Paul real quick for people who don't know who Paul Mooney is. Paul Mooney was one of the writers behind Richard Pryor. It not just in his stand-up, but also in his movies. He would come in and punch. Paul was a writer on Richard's TV show on NBC that only lasted a year. But Paul was he was also a really wonderful writer, and he opened up for all the big acts. Paul
Everybody.
was, any Black singer, Paul was opening up for them. He was close to Richard. He just didn't have the same publicity as Richard, but Paul was up there. He moved in those circles and did a lot. So I just wanted to let people know who Paul was. So go ahead.
Yeah, look up Paul Mooney on YouTube or whatever. Him, Sandra Bernhardt. He had a whole list of people who. Now his comedy, you just when you see it, you'll know that he was on the edge every night. Some people would get up and walk away on certain nationalities because he would just talk about, it's like, oh yes, you can't live next to but you pick up ET and and you love ET, but you can't. He's great. But look up
brother.
Brother. Oh my brother. Oh, let me tell you I got one Paul Mooney story. Because I got to know him and even when he got sick, I went to Oakland because he's from Oakland. I went to the hospital and I directed this thing called Midnight Blue for BET. And I wanted Paul Mooney. So I would call Paul Mooney. Paul, I need you in this part, man. I need my ringers. Because at the time, BET had all these tapes and they said, you got to pick from these tapes. And I said, well, okay, I'll pick from these tapes, but this is a comedy. I need my ringers. Paul is a ringer. He's funny. And so I called Paul and he wouldn't answer. I called, Paul, pick up the phone. What the hell? He wouldn't answer. One day I said, okay, I got to move on from Paul. I told BT, he won't answer me. And so then I called Ronaldo Ray, and he's another comedian. And along the same lines as Paul, but anyway, I called Ronaldo and I said, Ronaldo, hey man, I'm doing this thing. Can you do this part for me? He goes, what you know, Bobby? Yeah, I'll do the part. And so he did the part. The next thing, my phone rings. After I gave him the part and everything, it's Paul. You're just like every other Hollywood Negro. You gave my part to another Negro. You are the lowest of the low. I said, Paul, you didn't call me back. I called you a million times. You didn't call me back. And even though he was reaming me, it was the most hilarious thing ever in life. I loved it. The worst thing that could have happened is at the time, we had little cartridges in our machines, little tapes in our answering machines. Somebody called and erased over it. I like to die. I was like, oh my God, I lost that message from Paul. But Anyway, I just wanted to mention that about Paul. Paul was great.
So how did you start getting into directing?
I wrote a piece called "Why Colors." It was about wearing the wrong color in the name in the wrong neighborhood, and because in my musical life, I would go to this guy Larry's house, and he lived in Watts, and I had a jacket there was a red jacket, WKRP in Cincinnati. When I got out the car, everybody's like, "The hell you doing with that jacket on?" I was like, "That was WKRP in Cincinnati. I'm from Indiana. What's the problem?" It was red, and I was in a blue area. And so my friends were like, "Bob, take that jacket off now." And I was like, "What's the problem?" He said, "Bob, you would get shot messing around." I was like, "Man." So that's why I came up with the idea of why colors. Like, why do we have this why color thing? And so instead of red against blue, I wrote a thing about fluorescent greens and fluorescent yellows and stuff like that. And it was a comedy. It had Ice-T in it, Flavor Flav, Barry White, all the Robert Townsend partners in crime was in it.
Hilarious,
Um,
hilarious.
Regina King, ton of people. So I said, I want to do this. And what I didn't say is once I got out of school, I had some NDSLs and some fizzles, which are loans from college. And I said, I got to get a job because they're going to start charging me and this, that, and the other. So I worked at Xerox. That was a side hustle at Xerox, computer sales. And then I moved to data satellite communication. And I remember one day I walked in, I couldn't do it. I had a headset, I had a terminal, and I had my keyboard and all the stuff. And one day it just hit me. I said, I can't do this no more. I need to go for my dreams. I don't want to be if I woulda, coulda, shoulda. I'm good. So I took some Xerox paper out of this box and I started clearing out my desk. And I didn't tell anybody. It just so happens my manager walked behind me and said, Mardis, what are you doing? I said, man, I can't do this no more. I got to go do a film. Do a film. And there was a commercial once, E.F. Hutton. When E.F. Hutton speaks, we listen. And the people with the other headsets in all these cubicles, when I said, I have to quit because I'm going to do a film, and then people, Bob has tripped out majorly, and then he goes, well, I said I got to go to HR and I got to get my 401k because even though it's a penalty, I'm going to use some of that money to do my film. And so that's when they say, Bob, you're tripping out because you get a check every 2 weeks here. Whatever you're doing, you're not going to get a check until you sell the piece or whatever. So that film actually ended up on Showtime. That was my first piece. And then they gave me a deal for another project called Circle of Pain. Then I did a straight to video film called One Last Time. And I just started doing my stuff and this, that, and the other. And I did some other stuff. As a filmmaker, you'll do anything. I remember one time I was doing some grip stuff, and I had to watch the cube truck with all the grip equipment in it, and I brought a machete with me. Now people, and this was in Linwood. Now people had guns, and I got a little machete. How stupid are you? so so I would drive dualies. There's a generator, 12 amp generator, and I would drive the dually. Dually is just two big axle wheels connected, and this generator connected to it. So I would do that. I would do anything I could. I was a music supervisor. I was at one time I was a script supervisor. You did everything because at one point when I was an actor, a lot of times I wouldn't sit with the actors because I already knew them. I would sit to people and wardrobe. So tell me about wardrobe. What do you do here? And this, what do you do here? Five Heartbeats. When Robert was doing that, I would just be asking all these questions. What it's like, why are you asking these questions, kind of thing. But because I was an actor, it was like a step up. They would answer me to be polite because I was an actor. So that's how I learned a lot of different stuff just by asking questions. Only thing they could do is say shut up, and I wasn't afraid of that from acting. All the rejections. Are you kidding me?
Right. And I also think that you asking people about themselves and what they do, not many people ask them. So
Yes.
they are willing to talk to you because they don't always get that kind of love. And so they're going to answer you. So I'm a big believer in talking to everybody. Okay, so you started doing your stuff. You started writing, you started doing your own movies. You also started to do documentaries. And I want to get into the documentary you did on Katrina, Keeping the Faith. Was that your first documentary?
That was my second one. I did a documentary in the Bay Area called Beats by the Bay. And the issue with that, and it was great. My nephew wanted to be a rapper. He wanted to do certain things. So I said, okay, who are the three biggest people in the Bay Area? He says, MC Hammer, Too Short, and E40. I said, okay, those are our tent poles. So now we'll get all these other people, Mac Mall and all these other people, Bay Area rappers, but we got to get them. So we set out to get all those people and say, okay, who knows him? Who knows him? And that's the biggest thing is who knows. Even when I did White Colors, who knows Barry White? Because Barry White was a gangbanger at one point.
I didn't know
And
that.
yes, he was a gangbanger. And they said, well, he just lives over there. I said, really? Okay. So I knocked and I said, hey, listen, I'm doing this film. You know, it's about this, that, and the other. You got to have your log lines ready because they got 30 seconds and they're moving on. So he goes, yeah, I can't even say low ass Barry White's voice, but yeah, okay. Come to the studio and we'll put something down for you. I was like, because I wanted him to narrate certain things. And he said yes. The moral of that story is you'll get 100 no's, but it only takes one yes. So you just ask. The only thing people can, they're not going to shoot you unless you're in certain neighborhoods, but you just go ahead and ask. And some people may say yes. There was some scandalous stuff happening in the Bay Area at the time, too. At one point, I had just got done interviewing Sugar T, who is E40's sister. And I was on a street called Telegraph. After we got done shooting, I had a crew of like 4 people with me. I looked at my Jeep and I was like, wait a minute, somebody broke in my Jeep. And I had all my equipment. I just bought an Airy kit and all these stuff. I had my computer. I had different things because I had my base was in LA. So I drove there and somebody broke into my stuff. And I was like, oh man. And then as soon as we got to the car, a guy jumps out with a gun and he says, give me the rest of your shit. And I was like, wait, what's happening? And then my grip guy gave his bag of stuff. My nephew was standing right next to the guy, and I had a camera. It was like slow motion. It was like, hey, dude, got a gun. And then we all took off running. But then when my nephew didn't run, so I had to come back. I was like, I can't leave my nephew in this lion's den. So I walked back and he took all the rest of this stuff. And I knew that all the equipment was empty. So somebody else was watching with a gun. So we couldn't do anything. So it was scandalous. But eventually I got all the interviews and I got everything. And MC Hammer lived out in Tracy at the time. He had this Fred Sanford truck in his driveway. His house was you could play a football game, a college-sized football game in the front yard. I was like, Hammer, why do you have a Fred Sanford truck in the middle of? Look up Fred Sanford and you'll see what his truck looked like. He goes, oh, that's my underbucket. And I said, oh, okay. I didn't know what underbucket was. And I said, oh, I
What
thought you
is
lived.
it? What is an
And
underbucket?
an underbucket is when he goes back to the neighborhood, he can't drive his high class Mercedes and all his other cars. He has to drive in a car that won't get noticed. And so and it won't get stolen. So you drive an underbucket. That's why it's called underbucket. His car was a bucket. And then so he can maneuver around the neighborhood better in a car. He wouldn't stand out. So that's what that was. And then he said, he was coming from, he came up behind me. And I said, oh, I thought you lived here. And he says, I do, but I really live around the corner somewhere. I said, oh, why didn't you give me that address? He says, because I give people like you this address because you're a reporter kind of thing. But his house was, people were saying, oh, he's poor now because his house with the bowling alley and all that stuff got taken, this, that, and the other. But he wasn't poor. I mean, he did with 2 houses and this, that, and the other. But he did his thing, and MC Hammer was real cool. He's cool with people, And then we went and got E40. He was in Reno at the time, so I would drive everywhere to get whoever I needed to get. Too Short was actually in Los Angeles before I did his interview. He wanted to get a haircut. Then he wanted to go to Fat Burger. Then he wanted. I was like, okay. I dedicated the day with hanging out with Too Short until I got the interview. So sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
So now you did this documentary. What possessed you to say, I want to do a documentary on Katrina?
I saw stuff on the news and it was like breaking my heart. I wasn't funded or anything. I went to a church called West Angeles. It was on Crenshaw Boulevard. And Bishop Blake, I remember sitting there and he said one day, he said, somebody in this audience needs a miracle. And I was just like, yeah, that's me. And because I need funding to do what I need to do with this doc I want to shoot. Then he said, if you need a miracle, stand up right now. I don't really like standing up in church and bringing attention to myself. But I said, oh, all right, I stand up. So I stood up. And other people stood up too. Not a lot, but other people stood up. He goes, if you need that miracle, you need to come down to the front. I was in the balcony. Come down right now. Don't look around. Come down. I was like, oh, now he's telling me to walk down there. Oh my God. So I walked down to the front. And then, so there was about maybe 75 people in front. It's one of those mega churches, like 5,000 people. So 75 people or so was down there. And then he put his hand over us. He goes, God, these people need direction. They need miracle. They need and this, that, and the other. And he prayed for us. And then he says, okay, you guys can go back to your seat. So I was walking back to my seat and I was feeling good. I'm glad I went down there. I said, God is going to make it rain now. I'm going to get my funding. It's all good. It's going to rain. Then the next week happened and no money. Then the next week happened and no rain, no money. Then one day I was taking something out of my wallet and I saw it was specifically this card. It was my American Express card. Then I said, God didn't say it was going to be cash. It could be credit. I remember Robert. If Robert could do it, I could do it. So I went and bought a ticket to New Orleans and I said, all right, let's go. I put my equipment I got it together, went there. I didn't set up not one interview. This is how God works. He said, it doesn't matter. I'll hook you up with who you need to hook up with. And so I got at least 75 interviews. And the first night, there wasn't a place to stay because all the local people were staying in the hotels. And I said, hey, man, where can I stay? They said, if you want to stay, you got to go to the upper class hotels because they ain't letting just general people in there. So you could go there. I was like, how much? $400? I said, okay, I'm going to do this one time, but I can't be doing that because at American Express says in 30 days, you have to pay this sucker off. So I stayed, I did that. They did have a rent-a-car. So I got a rent-a-car because a lot of rent-a-cars were underwater. In certain places, New Orleans is below sea level. And when the levee broke, 17th Street levee broke, it flooded like a lot of stuff. Even the Iberville projects, they flooded. I remember shooting a music video there, and I was like, who stole the director's chair? Somebody stole the director's chair in Iberville project. But anyway, so I would just go to like the Salvation Army. It was kind of spiritually oriented, and so I got interviewed there, and then I would meet people, and they would just like. In fact, sometimes bartenders are there, like a local psychologist or psychiatrist. They talk to you. People talk to you. Sometimes you don't even have to answer people. So when the camera's in front of you, what happens is they kept saying all these things. This is what happened. And the nature of the film was, who was it that blessed you, that brought you out of this and gave you hope and this, that, and the other? That was the subject matter because the name of the film was called Keeping the Faith. You had to keep the faith in order to survive out of this. But before they kept that faith, they said, this is what happened. These people came in there shooting and killing and pillaging the place and doing all kind of, and snakes and stuff. Where what happens is that when it rises, all the snakes and the alligators and all those stuff rises out. And so people were intertwining with these animals and people were getting bit by, it was crazy. But anyway, so I went to Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana just capturing interviews and looking at foundations that all the houses were swept off the foundations. And so that's how that kind of happened.
And you actually connected with a lot of faith based organizations that were helping the people.
You can always find food, clothing, and shelter at a church because people would send monies to the churches and stuff. People would send monies to Red Cross, but the problem with that is the general people weren't seeing the monies that were sent to the Red Cross because they would pay their execs crazy amounts of money. And when they pay their execs crazy amounts of money, the people weren't seeing that. On the news, you say the increase of Red Cross was X amount of money, and they do that. But the people was like, we haven't seen any of that kind of thing. So it was interesting that if you did want to send money, you send it to that. And sometimes they would cross collateralize the giving and save it for this disaster or that disaster. But people thought they were sending it for Hurricane Katrina disaster.
You talk about being robbed up in Oakland,
Mm-hmm.
and you were also robbed in West LA. You were working on an Obama documentary, and they came in and jacked all your stuff.
Yes, I was tending to my mother, and while I was tending to my mother in the Bay Area, when she got sick, someone was robbing my house. Now I had all of the film inside of my computer. I didn't put it into an external hard drive yet, and then they broke into my place, and then they stole the. I was so devastated because I took time out to fly to Washington D.C. for his inaugural, and I just happened to get in. Senator Barbara Lee, I got some tickets to get in to the inauguration, and there were different parts where on the mall. That's where a billion people are on the mall. So I just took my camera and went there and just boom, asked questions, and so I had all this footage, had them sign releases and all that, and so all that stuff was gone, and it was actually I contend that it was my manager who knew I was gone because the releases were gone. I was like, why would a thief take the releases
Mm,
too?
mm.
Because I was suing them. The reason why I was suing them is
Oh.
because stuff had happened before,
Mm.
and not at my place, but if they didn't let the general population of the building know what happened, that's kind of illegal to do that. You have to tell people what's happening in the building. And that was one of the bases of me being able to sue, which I won.
All of that was stolen. Did you not have any of that footage somewhere else?
I had tapes, but it was all cut.
Oh, okay.
It was cut, and they didn't take the tapes, but I had the footage. I did have to recut Beats by the Bay too, because something happened to my hard drive, and this company said that they could fix it. And how they fixed it was, and the Beats by the Bay was in there too. How they fixed it was they just switched out the hard drive, and then they fixed it. And so I went home and I took it. And I said, "Well, where's my film?" Well, we got rid of the hard drives. We send them to San Jose, and they have a bin with a. I was like, my film. You said you would fix it. You didn't say you were getting rid. So I had to recut the Beach by the Bay. It was better after I did it, but it was like time that when you cut a film and say the film's gone and have to recut it, it's like, oh my god.
We did a movie and we took it to the colorist to, colorize it. We stayed with the guy all day. That was the last piece of post that needed to be done. Brother was putting the hard drive into the box, had not secured the bottom of the box, and it hit the floor. It was over, and
Oh
it it was months of getting everything back. There was no backup. There was
yes,
no backup. And from that, I learned that you have two hard drives going at the same time when you are working on a project. If anything happens to one, you have footage in the other one so that you are always backing up two hard drives at any given time. And then when you're done, you do a backup of the backup so that
absolutely.
you are always, oh my god, it was horrible.
Nightmare on Elm Street. And even at the time of the Obama doc, I had 41 hard drives behind me. And I was just gonna, when I was done, I was just gonna put it on there. I should have done it quicker, but such is life.
So let me ask you something, because we have been going through your career, what you've done, all this stuff as an artist, and
Hmm.
you have touched many genres, from music to comedy to acting to directing narrative films and documentaries. We started the conversation with, it's who you know.
Mm.
How has who you know affected your career in a way to get you footage of Obama, get you into the hip hop or the rapper community, get you into BET? It seems like there's a through line. Actors specifically and other artists think that it happens like magic, but you are painting a story for me that I keep hearing: who you know, who you know, who you know.
You're absolutely right. And if you don't know a person, like I didn't know Barry White, I just get on the phone. Who knows Barry? Who knows Barry? Who knows Barry? I do like that. And then somebody, 6 degrees of separation, somebody knows whoever you're looking for. And if they're open enough, they could introduce you to them and this, that, and the other. Or they'll call. Usually they call on your behalf and they talk, and then eventually you hook up. Your contacts are so crazy important. And that's why you kind of have to call once in a while to just touch bases and not wanting anything. Just, hey, what's up? How you doing? Oh, I just want to see your voice, hear your voice, and this, that, and the other. And not to say I'm getting ready to ask you something down the line. It's just to keep things cool.
What's the difference between relationship and networking?
Networking is when you go out a certain place and you see all these people around, is to go up to them and have a conversation. As an actor, I'll go up to anybody and just start talking to them. If they don't want to talk, then you'll know that they don't want to talk. And respect that and just leave. Okay, well, talk to you later. And I have my card with me. And on my card, you just make sure. Now things have changed. And let me show you how things have changed. So this is my card. This is a QR code which goes to the site of bobbymardis.com. Now, on the other side of the card, this is the company site, which is a different site. All my information, including my cell phone, other websites, and LinkedIn, and all those different things that they need. So you have to do your due diligence. They want to do the due diligence about you. You want to make it easy for them to do their due diligence. It's like, this guy gave me his card. Let's see who this guy is. Once they see you've done some stuff, then maybe they want to listen to you a little longer. That's networking, is getting people into your Rolodex, your contacts, and then you follow up. And why do I have a card instead of doing it the other way? Because on my contacts, I didn't put where I met them or anything like that. And I have 7,000 people, and sometimes it's like, oh, wait a minute, where did I meet you? And that whole thing. But if you put on there, I met them at the rodeo and their wife is named Marjorie and they got 3 kids in college, or whatever the conversation was, it'll spark your memory. If you don't do that with all those contacts, it's almost impossible to remember, especially if it's a year or 2 years later. For me, it's impossible. Some other people might remember them, but I can connect with them if you told me a story. I had to cut one of my legs off, and oh, that's the guy with one leg. I mean, you just remember them. So those are contacts. They become relationships once you meet with them or talk with them about any issue that they resonate with. If they can connect with you on an issue, they'll remember you, and you will remember them longer.
So I want to, two things, you bringing that up. So the first thing I want to say is how important having a physical card is, more so than putting everything on the phone. As old school people, the importance is you can lose your phone, lose everything. You have cards you keep. You are able to write down on it where you met the person, how you know them. Just making that little. I met him at Carlos and Charlie's. I met him at Bob's Big Boy. I met him at Ralph's Supermarket. I put together this book called The Acting Smarter Planner for Actors. Well, in it, I have a section where you write down people you meet with the information. And this book is a book that you would use every year. in the 1 year you put everything down so that you go, you know what? I remember meeting Bobby Mardis on Crenshaw. He was coming out of the chicken place, and I got his card. I don't know what I put his card, but I remember I wrote it in the planner. And I remember that it was last year. I can go back to my last year's book and go, oh, there he is. This book has saved my life so much because I put all of my information in it, from acting classes to auditions to when I meet people to interviews to meetings with industry people to just networking. And that list of networking allows me to then start reaching back out to them and building that relationship. What I was taught when I got here from New York was, as soon as you meet people, contact them the next day. So back then we didn't have emails, we didn't have all of that fancy stuff. So we write little notes or we call and say, hey, it was nice meeting you, Bobby. I look forward to meeting you again. And today you meet people, you send them an email the following day or a text saying, it was really great meeting you. I look forward to meeting you again. And then put them on your list, your target list, which I have a target list for everything in this book. And so you meet them, you write, you put them on your target list and you contact them every 6 weeks, maybe, or you pick a time so that you are consistently reaching out to them, because that is how relationships are built. One of the things I love to do is when I get cards to staple it into the book. I also have this planner as a digital, but what I love about the physical book that I can't get from the digital is that I can just go, oh, there it is. Oh, okay. It's just quicker for me. It just makes the organization better.
I would also say one more thing. Make sure you make your card, put it in matte and not glossy, because a pen can't write on glossy. So put it in matte. And this QR code is just the updated thing. When in my day, I wouldn't have put what's a QR code? Now I can say boom, and you can scan it with your phone and go straight to wherever you need to go. So that's important. And another thing is important too, once you transfer it to the book, you can go into real specifics, because if you're talking to a person and, oh yeah, my wife's, we're having our anniversary on Saturday and this, that, and the other. If you call around that time, hey, look, I just want to say happy anniversary because I know I met you during the time. And you're not going to remember that unless you write it down. So all those little things, believe me, it goes, oh, it's your birthday. I just wanted to say happy birthday.
Because we have the internet now, one of my favorite sites is called perplexity.ai. And if I type in your name, Bobby Mardis, and I put actor, Bobby Mardis actor, Bobby Mardis producer, it will give me your bio. It will give me everything on you, and it will also probably give me your birthday. I can put that in my stuff. I can put birthday. I can put where you went to school. I can put, oh, he worked a lot with Robert Townsend. Oh, he worked with, he did projects for BET. Oh, he did some documentaries. Oh, he did. I can add little information that is important to me so I can reconnect with you and go, hey, how's your doc going on side hustles? Hey, how's your stuff going on? Blah, blah, blah. When is the next time you're going to be in town? I'd love to take you out for coffee or dinner, whatever. However you're available, I'd love to treat you. That's
Absolutely.
relationship, right?
Absolutely. And I learned from an old Asian guy. He said, it is better for a poor guy to take a rich guy out than a rich guy to take a poor guy out. I was like, what do you mean by that? The rich guy has all the money to take. Yes, but he has all the knowledge that you want to get. So you take him out, and if you got to pay $100 for lunch or whatever it is, you pay that, because you're going to get $1,000 worth of knowledge and wisdom. So you should do that. So if you need to take a casting director out, if they'll go with you, go, because you and I would not I would not order a bunch of stuff because it would be you if you need to order some soup, so because you're going to be the one talking, and you're going to prompt that person to talk and give you the wisdom, and that's what I do. I'll take people out, and they could buy me 10 times over, 100 times over, and but I'll still take them out.
That is so important. Whenever you invite somebody, it is on your dime. Remember that. You don't invite anybody that you cannot pay for. If you can't pay for the meal, you do not invite them to the meal. That
Absolutely,
is, I'm a big believer. If I invite you, I know I'm taking care of it. We can fight over the check, but at the end, I'm still taking care of it because I want them to know I don't want anything from them. I want to build relationship with them. That it is really important as actors, as any creative, when you're dealing with somebody who's on a higher level than you, they are immediate looking to see what do you want from them. And you mentioned this before. What are they trying to get from me? But when you say, I just
hmm
want to take you out, I want to get to know you. I loved your energy. I just think you are a fabulous person. So anywhere you want to go, I'd love to treat you as long as it's not out of town, out of state, out of the country. I'd love to take you to get something to eat, and I always let people know I'm a foodie. So if you tell me what you like, I will take you to the best place I know in the city. You know, that way I'm introducing them to something different that maybe they never had before because my taste buds are very, high. I can tell when the food is not, that is
right,
one of my gifts. But it is you're inviting them and you are also offering them something that they might not have gotten. If you know a little bit about that person, like, what's your favorite meal? You like Cuban food? Oh my God. Have you been to so and so? Because they have the best. Have you been to you like Korean barbecue? I'm gonna take you to the best Korean barbecue you have ever had. I, you're gonna love it.
absolutely.
And all of a sudden they're like, really? Really?
Mhm,
Or if it's something that they mentioned that you don't know about, say, oh, I'd love to go. What's your favorite place that serves
mhm.
Vietnamese food? I'd love to try. I've never had it. There is an exchange of new information. They're gonna remember you because you guys shared something different.
Absolutely. I wanted to add this one thing too, specifically because um, we're in the time period of the Me Too's and all that kind of stuff. And this is more for women. Is that this is just my opinion too. I personally think that a woman should say, "Listen, and be very clear about it. You are in the entertainment industry, and I'm specifically wanting to get more information about what you do and this, that, and the other, because you don't want you don't want them to misconstrue why you're inviting them, because they could take it a different way, and it's like, but at least you say it from the top. Oh no, I said that I'm interested in your entertainment things and how to write, how to direct, how to produce, how to whatever it is, as opposed to romantically. So if you're clear and you say it, you can always say, oh no, I was very clear.
And I would say that for any gender. I mean, I think to be very upfront, yes, women have to be careful, but everybody has to be careful in this day and age. To say what it is that you are looking to get is so important. Clarity,
Mm-hmm.
clarity. I am looking, you have been in the business for a long time. I want to find out how you navigated things when you first got here. Who did you connect with? How did you look for what it was that you wanted? Be real clear, be real specific. Hey, I'm looking to start an acting career and I don't know how to start. Can I talk to you about classes that you've taken? Do you mind if I take you for coffee and just talk to you? And I'll bring my book, I'll write my stuff down, write everything you tell me down. But can you kind of guide me?
Right. And if you really connect and they see where your intent is and they see your drive for professionalism, they'll actually help you if you do that. The place I came from, Hammond, Indiana, it's strong moral, strong ethical. It was like a village. If I did something in the street, they my mother gave them everybody permission to give me a spanking in the street. I would come home and my mother would give me a spanking too. I got two spankings. And nowadays, if you hit someone's kid in the street, they may shoot you. But I'm just saying, coming to a certain location with a strong spiritual, ethical, and moral fiber within your foundation will help you grow faster because then you can make better decisions. It's like, would mom say it was cool to do whatever that? Maybe not.
And common sense. You need common sense. And if you are inviting somebody to go out and you feel like they are flirting with you,
Hmm.
don't go out because they have a different agenda. They are already telling you, this is what I want. You have to honor that, to just go, oh, okay. All right. Well, I wasn't looking for that, but thank you for at least listening to me. I really appreciate it. And keep it going.
Yes, inviting someone out is a strategic move. You're inviting someone out to get to know them, and so they can get to know you. So you solidify the relationship, so they can think about you when things come up. As a part comes up, oh, there's that guy. He took me out, or this girl. She took me out, and it's good to make that connection because if they think of you when you're not around, that's when you want them to think about you, when you're not around. But I think you have to do something that actually gets them to remember you. And going out, even to have a hamburger or a cup of coffee at a Starbucks or wherever, they will then remember, oh yeah, she took me to go get a frappuccino latte, whatever. And so if you have that conversation with them, and you're actually getting a lot out of this too, because when you stop talking and maybe ask the question, I find that a lot of people tend to want to talk about themselves too. And if they do talk about themselves, for example, I was doing this jazz documentary called Passing the Torch. It's about passing down the torch from the old generation to the new generation. And there was one jazz artist, his name was Harry Sweets Edison. He played with Count Basie and a lot of people. He would write songs for Billie Holiday and all that. And so he says, well, I will do your interview for you, but I'm only going to give you 10 minutes. And, I'm busy. And he lived all the way in Columbus, Ohio. And I flew all the way out there for this, in my mind, 10 minutes. But the key is you can't shut an old person up. So I went and did that. We had an hour and a half, and it was one of the best interviews. But he told me before I got there, he says, you might as well stop off at the bank because you got to pay me some extra money. I was like, and I was pissed. I was like, I already flew out here and you want to gank me for some more money. And I had to, before I walked through the threshold of his house, I had to calm down. It's like, okay, you already out here. Don't be mad. Just let it go. Let it fall off you like water. And so as soon as I walked through that door, I said, hey, how's it going? Here's your money. And he sat down, and that 10 minutes turned to an hour and a half, and he gave me gold.
Give me three people that you can think of off the top of your head who you've interviewed or worked with who has influenced your career in a most profound way.
Well, the first person I'd have to say Robert Townsend because he just was a go getter and just did it. You can say against all odds because that was his first film. He didn't even know he could do it, and obviously he did it, and did it well. And once again, I was on the set watching, watching, watching. But he influenced me to just get it. And in fact, that keeping the faith documentary that I did, that I took out my credit card, same thing. Robert influenced me to do that. The documentary that I'm in town now doing, which is called Side Hustle, I looked at that gold credit card and I said, I might as well go and just do it. And this thing was not funded. And you find that a lot of things that you do may not be funded, and credit is a way to do it. You don't want to build up a gigantic bill, but if you want it done, mainly it's all on you. What are you going to do to get it done? And sometimes it's like that. So that's one person that I think that influenced me a lot when I think about certain things. My friend Rusty Cundiff, he did Fear of a Black Hat, Sprung, Tales from the Hood, directed a lot of David Chappelle shows. He influenced me to do, and we came up together doing stand-up comedy. We would do stand-up comedy together at Marla's Memory Lane. Marla is a person that I did on this particular project, Hustle. I shot her last night, but I stayed with her throughout the entire um, span of my life. I worked with her on 227, and I was standing in. She said, "Oh, come on and just do this right here." I was standing in for Curtis, another actor, the younger actor, and I've been with her ever since, doing different things at her club and just knowing her. But Rusty would influence. I would see the moves that he was making, and he was more intellectual about what he was doing, and so he knew how to work with different people. He got certain agents, and he had a set crew that he went on to use the same people. And I know Robert used a lot of the same people. He would use Bill Dill as a DP. He would use certain people a lot. Of course, he changed up. He used Peter Deming first time, and then he used other people. But Rusty had his set people that he would do various things with, and I looked at that too. I mean, Robert has his crew. I mean, he'll use Keenan. Actually, Keenan co-wrote Five Heartbeats with Robert as well,
And
so,
Hollywood Shuffle.
and
Yes, that's
Hollywood
right.
Shuffle.
That's
So,
right.
you learn certain things from certain people, and you just sit back, and you don't have to give them props every 5 seconds. You just sit back and shut up. An old guy used to tell me when I got out of college, I worked for that Xerox situation. He's told me when you get in there, and I don't even know what he did, but he was an old guy. He said, "Come here, young man." And I said, "Yes, sir." You know, he said, "Let me just tell you how to extend your value." And I said, "Okay, well, what do I do?" He says, "First of all, I want you to just look at the people who's doing this and shut the hell up. Don't try to be too smart and this, that, and the other. I know you've been to college. You already told me, but you shut the hell up." And I said, "Okay, well, why would I shut the hell up?" He says, "Because you can learn a lot by just letting them talk. And after you let them talk and you put it all in your memory bank and you find out how to use these computers and do what you need to do, when you have enough information, you take it away and you go and do your same thing that they're doing. But now you have the information and the knowledge to do it. But the minute you start talking and you think you know more than them or this, that, and the other, they're going to shut up and they're not going to tell you the clue or the juice to get you there." So I learned from him as well as too. And that's just a little, you'll be surprised how many people you can learn from that you may not even feel you can learn from. And I'll give you an example. I was on Venice Beach one day. I was sitting back and I was trying to draw these trees and this, that, and the other. He called it a thumb bob. There's a guy who came and sat right next to me, and he was clearly an alcoholic. And I scooted over, and I had a thing of orange juice right next to me. And he says, "Hey, can I have a sip of your orange juice?" He just drank it before I could say yes or no. He drank it. I was like, "What the hell?" And and he said he had to give it back to me. I said, "No, you could keep it. It's all good." And then he leaned over and saw what I was doing. He says, "Well, if you use this little plumb bob thing, you can get your dimensions and you can start to do." And I thought he was just an alcoholic and didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And my smart butt said, "Okay, well, why don't you do it? Why don't you see? Let me see what you do." He did it, drawed it impeccably perfect, and I learned something from him. I was actually mad at myself. The reason why I was mad at myself because I judged him before I should have judged him. I shouldn't have judged him at all, but he was way better artist than me. Most actors can do other things, a musician, draw, and this, that, and the other. But when he did that, I was mad at myself, but I said to myself, you know what? Everybody has something to offer. If you just shut up and listen, you'll eventually find out. So that helped me.
How has being spiritually based informed you as an artist?
It's helped a lot. In fact, the keeping the faith, I went to Bishop Blake. He did, now there's 5,000 people in the auditorium. He doesn't know me from a hole in the ground. I just, pay my tithes, whatever. I called up the office and says, I would like Bishop Blake to do a interview for my film. Do you think he would do it for me? Yes, he did it. I came into the empty tabernacle, and we shot it, and he was great. So you got to have the faith that if you ask for something, there is a possibility that you'll get it. And another part of the faith that I have is there's a connection with God that everybody has. Now, some people call it your pineal gland, which is in it's in your skull right here, and the Pope has a staff, and the pine cone is shaped like your pineal gland. So his pine cone represents the pineal gland, the Pope now. So you connect with God, usually the hours between 3 and 5. Go on to Google and find out. You can go on to YouTube too. There are things on between 3 and 5 is when you get this connection. 3 to 5 in the morning. Yes, you're asleep, but if God needs to talk to you, he'll wake you up and tell you what you need to know. Sometimes he'll wake me up and I say, oh, I'm gonna remember that, and go to sleep, and when I wake up, it's gone. So I had to write it down. I wrote an entire book. I've been writing kids' books too. You can go on Amazon and see the kids' books. But I've written 7 of them. But I'm writing one now called Graduation Manifesto. And these are things that I get from God. I can seriously say everything that I in that book I get from God. So you get envelopes. When you get an envelope, you take out whatever the letter is and you throw it away. Well, some envelopes are blank. So I collected all these blank envelopes and I use them and put them at the side of my bed. And when I get up, I just write on these envelopes. And when I wake up for real, I have all this information. So I then started to put that in a book. So the graduation manifesto is something when a kid graduates from high school or college, you give them $100, 200. Hey, congratulations. Go do whatever. That money's gone in a week, maybe a day, maybe 2 weeks. Who knows? But this book, they can have that for life. About 75% of the stuff that I wrote down came from God. 25% I go and ask older, wiser people. How do you maneuver through this? How do you maneuver through that? And I put it all in this book. That's the next book that will come out through me. And I got that specifically from him. So I have to have the faith that he's going to give me certain things that I need to move past all the down times, the up times, and to do the right thing when bad things come to you. You have to know to do the right thing. And so you stop and say, now, what would you do? Would your mother say that's a good thing, or would she say that's a bad thing? He's on my shoulder, tapping me constantly, saying, yeah, okay, this is it right here. And so all the stuff that happens to you, I figure there's good things that happen to you and there's bad things that happen to you. The good thing moves you forward. The bad things, if you take it and use it as a lesson, that will help you move forward again, because you know not to ever do that again. So everything is there for a reason. God knows where you're going. He knows your trajectory way before you do. He knew it when he was dealing in Babylon and in Ethiopia and all the places which is everywhere. He knew it then, that back in 2025 to 2030, he knows Bob is going to make this move, and I already know what he's going to do. And sometimes I'm going to put people in his path for a reason. Those people will move him forward or give him a lesson. So faith is important. And I got that from going to church. Even when I was listening to things that didn't apply to me, like, adultery. Well, I'm not even married. I can't be. Or you just get the lesson, you figure it out, and you put it inside of you, and you move forward. And eventually, you're going to get your storage or your database of messages, and they will come to fruition. You'll use them one day. So faith is important.
I love what you're saying, because I am a believer that you need a spiritual center in order to operate as an artist. No matter what you do, be it actor, singer, musician, you need that spiritual compass to center yourself in. And I believe artists are faith walkers, that you cannot do art without faith, because you're usually you start with a blank canvas, a blank piece of paper. It's always blank, and it's up to you to fill it up. Either if you're an artist, you're painting on that canvas. If you're an actor, you're creating a role. If you are a musician, or writing a song, you are writing from a blank piece of paper. That's having faith. The Bible says faith is the evidence of things not seen. We see it, even though it's not present in the natural well. We see it in our mind's eye, and then we project it forward. And sometimes it comes in little steps. You see the first piece, then the second piece. If we take a page from Robert's Hollywood Shuffle, that wasn't a complete script. It was sketches that he did. I want to do this sketch. Okay, let me get a bunch of people. We're going to do this sketch. Oh, okay, I got an idea for 2 more sketches. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to be the pimp zombies. We're going to be the acting school, the Black actors school. And then because he was faithful with the little, then he got the through line. Oh, it's an actor. This is an actor's journey. Okay, that's how everything tied together. And as a creative, it's like, if you just listen to what you're being told at that moment, and then wait for the next moment, and not and in waiting, I don't mean you don't do anything, but when you are operating in creativity, there, if you are open, you get the next piece and the next piece. It's like you're evolving. That
Right.
faith evolves, it grows, it becomes something. It's like, but it starts with a vision. You have a
Right.
vision, and the Bible tells us, write it down. So you have a vision, you write it down. You talk about it in the middle of the night, you wake up and you write on those envelopes, and then the next day you see what it is that God downloaded in you. Everybody's got a different way that God talks to them. For you, it's the middle of the night. For me, it's throughout the day. Somebody may hear it, first thing in the morning. God talks to you according to how he made you. And I believe that if you honor how he created you, and you keep communion with him, and you keep asking him, okay, God, what do I do now? Without you waiting, okay, well, but taking action, right? Taking action.
That's the key. That's the key thing, is like, even Reverend Price said, you walk by faith and not
And
by
not
sight.
by sight. He always said this scripture: faith comes by hearing, and hearing, and hearing. And then he added, and it doesn't matter who you hear it from, as long as you are hearing it.
Absolutely. I mean, if you wanted a red Volkswagen, you all of a sudden you're driving, you start to see red Volkswagens. I mean, you start to see certain things, and and even when Robert picked certain people, Robert walked by faith too, because he had to see something in that person. There were times in makeup, we were doing makeup, and Robert would say, okay, Bob, Anne Marie Johnson is going to be my wife. You're my twin brother. You're going to try to make love to her, making sure that she thinks you're me, and this, that, and the other. And she has amnesia. And so sometimes, and that was an improv kind of thing. So he would give you the framework for something, but he had to have the faith to know that you're the actor that could pull this off. Some actors just give me the script and don't tell me about any of this improv stuff. But he knew the comedians, they knew how to do that because they do it every night, kind of thing. So you have to know various things. And I always put people in 2 different categories. One is a task-oriented person. One is an initiative-oriented person. The task-oriented person is good. You give them a task. I want you to take that box and put it right there. They will do that and do nothing else, but they are good at doing that task. Some people can say, okay, well, the box is in that room and it's the room is locked. So I got to find the guy who has the lock and he's all the way over there. They don't mess with you. They just find the guy way over there, come back, open up the door, then move the box. That's initiative. Those people are very valuable to me. Both people are valuable. I think the initiative is a little bit more valuable because I don't have to breastfeed the person every 5 seconds.
Right.
So,
Right.
but all of
Right.
it is faith in knowing who's who and what's what and what can get you to the next level.
With that, I'm going to ask, who mentored you in the beginning of your artistic journey? And who have you mentored? And why is mentorship important?
Mentorship in general is important because there's a person with who has had the experience, the knowledge. They went through the doors that you may not want to go through, but they can say, hey, look, don't go through that door right there because you'll go into these kinds of things. You'll fall off a cliff and this and just do what I've done. And some people don't understand that. Why can't I go through that door? I want to go through that door because it's hot there. They need to burn their hands and say, oh, that's why they said don't go through that door. So it's important that you don't have to go down a million roads, and a lot of roads don't lead anywhere. Just go down this road because it'll lead somewhere. So you're saving yourself time, energy, aggravation, frustration, and all that. So that's why you have a mentor, and the mentor can simply say, "This is the best way." Now, there are different ways of doing certain things because of the times we're in, the technical advancements we are, but it's always good to have a person who has been there to say, yes, you should do this. I've had even Carl Weathers. He played in Rocky. I would go to his house and he would talk to me and he would say this, that, and the other. And his house, he lived in Venice, and it was this a stage. It had curtains and the big window. It was like a big stage, and outside the other side of the stage was his pool and stuff. And to answer the door, he would have a fire, the firemen go down a pole. He would be on the second floor and go down this pole and answer the door. I mean, it was just this unique kind of thing. But he would talk to me. He actually, my film Keeping the Faith, he did the narration for me. So he did a number of narrations. I did the tribute to Maya Angelou. He did the narration. I did the tribute to, and this is for the DGA, Directors Guild, for F. Gary Gray. He did the narration. And so I could always call him to do. He did some stuff for me for Beats by the Bay. He was always there and just, hey, Bob. He didn't have to do anything. He was Carl Weathers, Rockies, and played football for Raider. I mean, he didn't have to do anything, but he did because of just I had favor in that place. God gave him say, oh, I help this guy, and he did. So he helped me. Different people helped me. Even my wrestling coach in high school, he's the one. I had a counselor. They said, okay, Bob, here are your classes. They gave me wood shop, auto shop, car shop. I was like, electric shop. I was like, I'm trying to get to UCLA. And so I went to my coach and I said, listen, this ain't right. He says, let me see. He said, oh, who gave you this? And then so he said, listen, just do what I say and you'll be fine. So he gave me the classes. You got to go to algebra, the geometry, trigonometry, calculus. You need to do these things. And I did everything. He even called up UCLA on my behalf. He called them up and he said, listen, I got a great kid, blah, 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 blah. And obviously I ended up at UCLA. So he was a mentor, but more of a, not acting mentor, but more of a social kind of a mentor. And so I had various people who helped me. Even non-verbally, Robert did. I mean, because I can watch him, and he's probably like, "Why is this fool watching me every 5 seconds?" But him doing Hollywood Shuffle gave me the nerve and gall and confidence to do my first film. So a lot of and even Keenan called me up and says, Bob, I want you to do. I'm gonna get you Sucker. I was like, great. I'm gung ho, and I was the guy of wearing too much gold who died of wearing. I was OG, over gold, LL Junebug, and so so and that was a for me. Even though it was a nonverbal part, it was very iconic part. And I was in another situation. And in fact, his sister, I think that was actually cut out. Nadia, not Kim, but I think his I forgot her name, but I had the big brim, that whole thing, and but so everybody, there are various people. Even Carl Craig, rest his soul, he was one of the producers of Hollywood Shuffle. He would like to build houses and build his stuff on his house. I would go over there and so how do you do that? Since we were friends and this, that, and the other, friends from Hollywood Shuffle, but also he's the one who hired me on House Party. Yeah, the House Party thing. I was one of the blind rappers in House Party. And so friendship often intertwines with work and this, that, and the other. And when directors know what you can do or producers know what you can do, it's really not about well, come in here and read these sides for me. They already know what you can do, and that's how I got that. But he would mentor me actually on all these different things that had nothing to do with acting, and a lot of people can do that. Acting is one thing, but life is something else.
And in order to be a good actor, you have to live a good life or a full life. In order to
Absolutely.
be a good actor, you got to live life. You can't just be about acting, acting, acting. You got to get out there and do stuff. That I learned that from Stella Adler very early on. It's like you will not be a good actor till you have lived life.
You had to
So,
experience something.
yes, yes. The Directors Guild. I want to ask you, how has the Directors Guild benefited you as a director?
I think Directors Guild is one of the most prestigious unions. The Directors Guild, Writers Guild, Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, which merged, American Federation of Radio Television merged and became one kind of thing. And there's the Screen Actors Guilds, there's IATSE, and that. But I think the Directors Guild is one of the most prestigious guilds there is, and just saying I'm in the Directors Guild, and I got in Directors Guild from the BET project that I did, and but just saying that you're in the Directors Guild gives you a little bit of it's that something like, oh, he's legitimate. It gives you credibility, legitimacy, and this, that, and the other. So when I'm talking to investors, I can at least say that. Now, mind you, I'll be really quick about this. Is the artist in me says write this script, so I'm gonna write it to the best of my ability. And yeah, you can use AI, but AI is not good for dialogue or anything. It can give you structure. If you use AI right, you can say, hey, look, based on Blake Snyder's beat sheet, put this idea or this treatment or synopsis in Act One, Act Two, Part Two, Act Two, Part Three, and Act Three. So one, two parts of two, and then Act Three. Put your beat sheet in this structure for me, and here is the characters, the this, that, and the other. That's what AI is great for. And even if you say, I need you to give me a Robert McKee spin on this and this, that, and the other, so you can build it like that. But you eventually have to sit down and write the script. And AI, you got to put AI aside and give. There's certain things that AI can't give you. It's not going to give you your heart and the soul of the piece and the verbiage and the dialogue. There's certain things that you can say, look, I want you to, there's character arc and there's story arc. Give me the character arc of this, give me the story arc of that. But you need to actually do that. So I'm not saying that's a mentor, but that's a tool. It's a great tool to use. And we're coming into this AI world, so you better jump on board. And Bill Duke once said, if you are hitchhiking on the info highway, you're gonna get run over, and that's straight out. So you got to get in tune with what's happening. It's going to happen if you like it or not. You can't stop progress. Is going to happen. SpaceX, all these entities, you don't have to like it, but do what the rich people do. Just buy stock in it and watch it go. You could hate what is happening, but use it.
So the Directors Guild is prestigious, and you've been able to use it. But you mentioned that you did two tributes at the Directors Guild, one for Maya Angelou, and I
Yes.
don't know who the second.
F. Gary Gray,
Oh,
and
Gary Gray, yes.
yeah, yeah.
And,
Well,
and
I did.
so being in there, because in order for you to do a tribute, you have to have been working in the guild. You as a member, you were involved in the guild.
You just get involved. You got to get involved. I was on the steering committee. And so the steering committee is where, we sit around. I was on the African American steering committee. There's the Latino steering committee, there's the Asian, there's the women, and I think there was a Native American as well. But everybody was covered with their agenda, trying to move things forward so everybody could work. Basically, that's
And
it.
the same, and just a side note, the
Mhm.
same for every union. They all have independent steering committees. Okay, go ahead. Just so that people
Yes,
know that it's not
yes.
just the DGA, but it's the Writers Guild. It's also SAG AFTRA. Go ahead.
Right. So the point is, get involved, and then you start to know people directly, and they know you. They knew I edit. They knew I did this, that, and the other. So hey, Bob, you want to do that? Sure, let's go. So when you do that, so you're calling them, getting certain things, and I did the tribute to Richard Pryor, and I just knew him from the Comedy Store. I didn't know him that personally. Although quickly, I want to say one quick story about Richard Pryor at the Comedy Store. I would go there, and Mitzi, who's the owner, would when she wanted you off the stage, she would turn the light on, and so that means okay, you got to wrap it up. The light's on. You got about 3 minutes to wrap it up, and then but if the light went on and off, then that means I don't care what you do, you better get your butt off the stage. So I stepped foot on stage, morning, ladies and gentlemen. But all of a sudden, the light comes on. I don't even think I got gentlemen off. I was like, in my mind, what the hell? You got to give me at least 20 seconds. And so I was like, the joke was, and thank you, good night. And it was like, and then I was like, who in the hell would stop my set like this? All of a sudden, Richard Pryor walked up, and he was with Robin Williams. They both got on the stage together. And my anger went to, oh, I get it. Bob Mardis, Richard Pryor, and da 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 da. So, and at the time there weren't cell phones. I just happened to have one of those little phones that you take to Thrifty, and they develop your stuff. So I took a picture because I wanted to remember that night I was on the stage for a hot second. So I probably will send that to you. But anyway, yes, I did a tribute with him as well. And I did 5 commercials for Maya Angelou because she got a deal with Hallmark, and I produced the commercials. And Kevin Hooks, Passenger 57, and Kevin Hooks.
I interviewed Kevin. Yes,
Oh,
love Kevin.
excellent! He
I love.
actually directed it. He directed them.
Oh, okay.
So it's a Hollywood is once you start knowing people and this, that, and the other, it's a small, community of people.
So you did the tribute to her. That's how you met her, or you did the commercials with her, and then you did the tribute.
No, I did a tribute, but that has nothing to do with getting the job for Maya Angelou. How I got that job indirectly is through Hollywood Shuffle. You're probably saying, what? Laretha Jones, who is one of the producers of Five Heartbeats, and she stayed with us through a number of Robert productions as a producer. And so she called me and said, "Hey, Bob, you want to do this thing?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, Kevin Hooks is going to direct, and you can produce, and this, that, and the other." Okay, go. So sometimes she would funnel me stuff, and so I even did this Intel project. It's shot in India, and I ended up not directing it. She wanted me to go there and do it, but I said, India was fighting Pakistan, and I said, how much is my life worth again? And and I never turn work down ever in life. However, she came back to me and say, well, you want to edit it and this, that, and the other. So I did that. So, and then, like I said, the connections, who is crazy important. They just have to know that you're serious, you're going to get the job done, and you're going to make them look good. You're not going to embarrass them, and you're going to on time and on budget. Those are the two things. And I say you're on time, you're on budget, and you didn't kill nobody in the process. If you could do that, you're cool.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I have a just an inkling that when we're on this earth for a reason, and we have to find out what that reason is for, and I just want to be immortalized somehow. So I have to do enough work so I'm leaving the earth better than when I got here. So I have work to do. In fact, I got a lot of work to do. I mean, I'm proud of Hollywood Shuffle, and I'm proud of I'm gonna get you sucker and the other films, Rocky and all these other films, but it's not enough. I got to do something else that I can put my fingerprint on. I've been writing books, I'm shooting documentaries, I'm doing all kinds of stuff, but within my realm of expertise, I need to do that one monumental project. And I'm not sure I know what it is yet, but I'm searching. Every 5 seconds, I'm searching for that project.
And it will come, because that's the faith that we talked about. So, Bobby, you told me about mentors for you. Tell me about who you have mentored or who you are mentoring at this time.
I do a lot of sessions and seminars. I did one for the Black Entertainment Economic Council on producing, and so I'm giving back much as I know. I'm giving it so they can move to the next level. But there's one particular gentleman. His name is Stephen Ashford, who's actually my nephew. He's a teacher, East Palo Alto Charter School. However, he got interested in filmmaking. And so he started to do certain films and this, that, and the other. And I talked about Beats by the Bay. Well, he was one of the producers on Beats by the Bay as well as the host of the film. And so he wanted to go off and actually be behind the camera and shoot a lot of projects. So he would call and ask me various questions. And finally, one day I said, okay, if we're going to do this, let me go ahead and do this so you'll understand the phases of filmmaking and this, that, and the other. So I helped him co-produce a bunch of his projects. One of them was Finders Keepers, and he did an okay job on Finders Keepers. And then I always told him, man, your next film has to be at least 10% better. He didn't go to film school, and actually Robert didn't go to film school, nor did I go to film school.
Nor
So
did Robert Rodriguez go to film school.
or Robert Rodriguez. Right, right. Um, um, Side note, Robert Rodriguez wrote this great book, Rebel Without a Crew. You got to get that book. For the filmmakers who look at this too, and I'll get back to Stephen, but the filmmakers who look at this, Robert said, okay, I have a bus, I have a guitar, I have a dog, I have a town. He used everything that he had so he didn't go looking for it. And I think he even did one of those medical experiments to get money for his budget, and then he just shot his film. So get that book, Rebel Without a Crew, because you'll learn something from that. All right, back to Stephen. And so I said 10% every film, 10% better. So he did Finders Keepers 2. After that, he did a horror film called Losers Weepers. so so I just wanted to let you know that giving back is actually quite easy because people gave to me, and life is a circle. When people give you, you have to give it back and pass it on down. So and he's won, in fact I think he won like 3 festivals already, and he's input in a lot of different festivals, but he got runner up and all those different things. So I think he's about maybe 8 to 9 festivals right now. So he's doing
Wow.
something right. He got number one in one festival. So he's doing something right and he's moving up. So we have a whole slate of films that we're going to be doing together as uncle and nephew.
That
So
is awesome.
yes. And I've actually jumped in some of his projects. And what he does is he does the reverse angles in where he's from, San Jose, and then he flies to Atlanta and we do the opposite angle. So
Oh, that's awesome. We didn't get to touch this yet, but since we're here, production and producing. So for those actors that want to self-produce, you talked about using your Amex to fund the Faith movie, right?
mhm, right.
Um, so how do you come up with the funds when you are self-funding?
Well, when I'm self-funding, I did a jazz documentary that I shot all over the world. And I don't know if I mentioned that. But I shot in Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam, Antwerpen, Rotterdam, Rome, Pisa, Venice, Florence, Verona, Tokyo. I did Blue Note in Tokyo, and from New York all the way to Los Angeles. New York was a mecca of jazz musicians there. Um, but I used the credit card, but you got to be careful with that credit card because in 30 if it's American Express, you got 30 days to not mess up. So you got to pay that. So when I got back, I kept paying it off because I had to get these little side jobs like this whole thing is about.
This is good. You were actually working, you kept working to fund your film. So you would make a certain amount of money, which is what Robert did. Robert
Absolutely.
would go on the road doing stand up, and then when he accumulated a certain amount of money, then he went and he rented the equipment for that weekend. People don't realize that it was 2.5 years that Robert shot Hollywood Shuffle, and it was because he had to keep making the money in order to fund the film.
Pay off that
So
credit card. You
yeah,
have to do that. Yeah.
he did the film in what, 12 and a half days, but it was over 2.5 years that it got made. So have you used, because as you're talking, I'm thinking GoFundMe, like Indiegogo, Kickstarter, different funding sources that you can ask your fans or ask your family, your friends, your enemies, your nemesises to fund, to help fund your project. Hey, give me $20, give me $30. I remember a couple years ago, Spike Lee did a crowdfunding campaign.
I think that was for Get on the Bus.
No, this
That
was after. This was
Oh,
after.
after.
This was more recent. Yeah. But
Okay.
but I think we Get on the Bus, he went to all these wealthy black billionaires and said, I need this, like the Bill Cosbys and the Oprahs. He said, I
Right.
need this amount of money in order to finish this film.
Absolutely. Funding your film is, let me just say, what Robert did, what I did, whatever, it was over a period of times, and you used your own money. But if you want to get a chunk of money so you don't have to do what we did, pay it off your credit card, then you have to do it the right way, which is actually you have the script, you break it down, you get your coverage, make sure the script, if you had to write it 20 times to make sure it's a good script, because everything starts with the script. So once you do that, and every actor will get to that point when they say, I need to do stuff and I need to control some stuff. I need to get more work. So create your own work. So, but it starts with the script. And even if you're not a writer, you go get a writer and make sure that they come up with the script for you.
Script. Let's talk rewrites, Mr. I'm in the WGA. Let's talk rewrites, because a lot of times people think I wrote a script. I'm ready. I'm ready to shoot. And sometimes you actually see those films on screen that they wrote a script, but there was no rewrites.
Well, okay. So just because you say the word the end, that doesn't mean it's the end. It just means it's the starting. You have some clay. Now you really got to mold it into something. So you write the word the end. A lot of times I have two sets of friends who are in the business, friends who are not in the business. I give the script to about 5 friends in the business, 5 friends out of it, and then they give me notes. Friends in the business will give me different notes than that person in middle America who's just reading the script. What's this EXT? That's exterior. What's this INT? That's inside. So you get different notes from them. I hate that character. Now, even though they don't know anything about scripts, you have to listen to them because they're the people in the audience. And so you look at that and you figure out, oh, okay, if she doesn't like that person and he's the protagonist, that's that's a bad thing. So, and the people in the business are a little bit more savvy about certain things. So After you get that, you take those notes and you rewrite them. And there are times too that I will tape a reading with the actors, because the actors will give me something that I never even thought of.
So you will do an early table read where you
Yes.
get a group of actors to read your script.
Yes, they're reading the script. I do that after the second rewrite. So on the third rewrite, I use the actors to do that. And sometimes I'll just take a MP3, the audio of the what the actors do, and I used to drive down the coast and just listen, or I'll sit in front of a lake or wherever and just listen to see what they say, because things come to me with that. Then I'll go back and do another draft. So right now I may be on my fourth draft of the script. And then film is what you see, stage is what you say. Yeah, you're doing stuff, but you got to really just narrow it down to that. So sometimes things could be too verbose. So you have to cut it down, and we have to see it in film. So you're doing stuff, and you have to make sure the characters are right. You have various voices. This person talks like this. They do certain mannerisms, or this, that, and the other. So you make sure you have your character arcs from when they start, and there's a journey, and they are different at the end of the journey. Same thing with the story arc. So you look at all those different things, and you got to know some structure too. Act one, act two, act three, and the inciting incident. What sparks the whole thing off? Home Alone. If Macaulay Culkin's family didn't leave, then there would be no Home Alone, because they're still there. If Harrison Ford did not find this map to the treasure, there's no treasure hunt. So there's always an inciting incident that sparks it off. And so you have to have that. Some people just start writing, okay, I'll write a script, fade in. And it's like, well, where are you going? What's the roadmap? This, that, and the other. So it's important to have those things. So, and then I take it a step further after I think it's cool. Now I'm going to send it out for coverage.
Tell us what coverage is for those that don't know.
Okay, coverage is when Hollywood professionals, like professional readers, they don't know you from a hole in the ground. So they just take your script and then they read it. And when they read it, they will either recommend it, strongly recommend it, or they'll pass on it. Like, you go back and, now sometimes they'll give you coverage or notes. So you have to pay at various things if you want a treatment out of it, if you want the log line, if you want whatever, but they'll give you notes on how to correct the script. Like, I think you should do this, or concentrate on this character, do this, that, and the other. So you get that coverage, and then you rewrite again based on that.
And coverage is a professional fee that you pay them to do it. It's not free. It's not your uncle, your aunt who's saying,
Right.
"Hey, baby, let me read this and let me give you some notes." You are actually paying, and in some instances, you can pay anywhere between 300, 3,000, depending on who the coverage doctor is.
Yes, and you can go. There are people from $65 to, let's see, Slated, I think, charges $1,000, but they give you a financial overview. When we get back to the finance, I'll tell you about that. There's the Blacklist. There's We Screenplay, Scriptapalooza. If you look up Hollywood script coverage, Google it, a whole bunch of them will come up. And so you do that until the script is recommended or strongly recommended. Now you at least have something there. Now, okay, let me just say something that you have to be careful on. Sometimes if you're an African American, or if you're a Latino, or if you're Asian, sometimes the script coverage people, whoever it is, may not be hip to the culture. And so they may give you notes based on their lack of knowledge of that culture. So keep that in mind. So you just have to know that all coverage is not great coverage. You have to take what you need and throw the rest out. So if you use certain jargon, colloquialisms, and this, that, and the other, that it's over their head, then they comment on that, you just take that and put that aside and then move forward. But if they talk structure, use that.
Right. And you have to know that they're not your audience. The only reason you're using them is to make sure the script is solid. The
Absolutely.
little notes about, well, why would he be doing this? You know why he would be doing this. Your audience knows why he would be doing this. So that's important to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you did 15 drafts of it to the world, here's the first draft. If you did a draft, your first draft, which is the 15th draft of you that you give it to them, whoever you give it to, if the studio picks it up, they'll say, okay, good first draft. And you just take that as it comes, good first draft. Now, if they said, here are your notes, and they give you notes, Now, sometimes it may go into turnaround, which we decided not to do it. So even if Warner Brother gives the script back to you, it becomes your first draft to Universal because every studio has to put their fingerprint on it. They could love it. They still have something to say about it, and that's just their job.
We'll get to the producing, but with that, you have a script. I'm an actor. This is my first time I wrote a script. I think it's really good. I like Tom Hanks for the part. So I'm so excited for my script. I'm sending it to Tom Hanks. I'm figuring out where he is. I'm going to send it directly to him. Can you tell me why that's a no-no?
Well,
Especially if I don't know Tom Hanks.
if you don't know Tom Hanks, I really doubt if Tom Hanks reads it. First of all, his the correct protocol is to go through an agent, a manager, a lawyer. You can do that, and because it's unsolicited. If you just send an unsolicited, I would never do that for the protection of you. And for protection of you, I would register it with the WGA, WGA.org. I would turn right back around and copyright it, copyright.gov. And so now at least you have some kind of protection. The WGA, it protects your film, your script for 5 years, and it's state regulated. The copyright.gov, it's for your life, the life of you, and it's federally regulated. And so I would rather go to federal court than to state court. And all that, mail that script to yourself and all that, that's a waste of time. Don't do that. Every time you write a script, there's metadata, and that metadata is connected to that file. So it'll say you wrote the script this day, this, that, and the other. So it's connected. So if they asked you to prove the metadata, you can say, this is when I wrote the script. Even if you didn't register to do anything, you can still prove that you actually wrote that property.
And if you take a meeting, let's say you have the lawyer, you have the manager, you have the agent, you take a meeting with an executive, they pass on it. They've read, it is in an email, the back and forth. And a year later, you see your project on their network or their streaming services. You now have legal rights, I believe, because I
Yes.
remember there was an incident where a assistant wrote something, sent it to someone, and they took it. But he had legal standing because he had been keeping track through email. Hi, Bobby. Just wanted to say thank you. It was great meeting with you regarding my script, Red Wall. I thank you for your notes about it. I will take that into consideration. Hey, Bobby, how you doing? Just following up if you have any word for me on Red Wall. So once you have representation, once you have professional and not your uncle who's a lawyer who's down in the boondocks, but a Hollywood attorney or a Hollywood agent or manager, not your mama who's your manager, but a professional manager. Let's really be professional here because they've been doing the job for a period of time, so they know what to do and what not to do.
Absolutely.
And I want to add to that, do not, Bobby just mentioned the unsolicited stuff. Don't get in people's DM and say, hey, this is my script, this is my story, and then you put that all in there. You put yourself in danger all the time when you do that. I cannot stress this enough. I must get this at least 3 times a week where somebody will send me the stuff and then I'll write back and say, I'm sorry, we don't take unsolicited information
Mm-hmm.
at all. We don't look at it. We don't read it. Please do not. And I'll say, don't do this. Don't send this to anybody else because you are putting your work in danger. And I've had people curse me out, on social media. Some guys say, "Oh, so that's how it is." It's like, man, I'm trying to help you here. That is
Absolutely.
how it is. That is how it is. So, just for the audience to know, you're excited about something, make sure that it is complete, that you've done the rewrites, and are ready to do another rewrite. If a studio or a production company is interested, you must. I can't stress this enough. Bobby just broke it down for you, but I feel like I have to say it again, because when you are new at writing, you think, oh my God, this is great. But the people who may be investing financially in it don't think so. So they're giving you notes based on their experience, based on their work, their work history. This is, and if you don't like it, then you say thank you and you go away. But if you don't take their notes, they're not going to invest in you. That's where the self-producing comes in. And so when you self-produce, you got to make sure that your script, there are no holes in it. Does that make sense? How did he get from New York to Asia and we don't know how that happened? All of a sudden he's sitting in his living room in Brooklyn, and now he is in South Korea. Hello, what was the transition? It's got to make sense. You got to be able to track the script. How did they get from point A to point B? You may know it, but the audience has to know it. So after you write it, you gotta become the logic police. Does this make sense?
Right. That's why you do certain passes. In some of your drafts, you'll do a logical pass. You'll do a protagonist pass to track everything the protagonist does so you can see it's a clear arc. You do an antagonist pass to see that that person is grows in their arc as well. So there's certain things that have to happen logically based on character development. Is that character developing? Sometimes a character may have all the subtext or the internal journey, because there's what we see on the external is one thing, on the internal emotional journey is something else. They could have a epiphany at the very end based on plants and payoffs. You just have to make sure that it all tracks. If something's illogical, people are going to resonate with that and say, ah, that shit didn't work. Oh, did you see that bullshit? I mean, so that people talk in the movies. If you ever been to Magic Johnson Theater, it's probably not here anymore, but black people talk in the movies and, man, would you look at this bullshit? I mean, so they will tell you what's happening when you don't want to hear it. Please shut up, please. So you have to make those passes. And I just want to say one more thing about that copyright thing. In terms of emails and texts, your texts are also acceptable in court. It's admissible evidence. Here are the texts, the SMS feeds, and this, that, and the other. So keep all of that, and you can download it and you can put it to the side. So when you need it, because you may have all of your versions of your script. If you brought 15 versions of your script to the lawyer, to the court, and you say, here's my 15 versions of how I got from here to there. Now you show me yours, how you got there. And they probably can't tell you because it's not their script in the first place. So I will say Hollywood is very big on stealing stuff, because you may live in, bum hickety doo Utah or somewhere, and it's easy to steal something from someone there because they have an unlimited big pockets, so they can stay in court longer than you can stay in court. So anyway, have your proof with you.
And also know that sometimes there are very similar stories, and we see this every now and then. We'll see two movies come out that are very similar. They've just been executed differently. Did they steal from each other? Not necessarily. It's kind of like when you do stand up, there are only so many premises.
Right.
So there are going to be comics who have a joke similar to yours. They just may have a different punchline. Did they steal from you? Not necessarily. Sometimes they do, but
Right.
sometimes,
If Robin
sometimes,
Williams is, no, I'm just kidding.
yeah. Robert Williams, the check, his manager would write the checks. He's like, "Look, we know he stole that. Here's a check. Don't worry about it." But also be aware of that. If it's not grounded in like somebody's history, or something that the story of Willie Robinson or the story of Etta Mae Johnson, it's gonna be similar. And sometimes there are two biopics on Willie Mae Johnson.
Right. One is unauthorized and one may be authorized.
That's right. That's right. So it gets a little complicated. So just, as a new writer, be aware of how to protect yourself and understand that, things go out into the ether. It's like Michael Jackson used to say, when God gave him an idea, he worked on it real fast because he didn't want Prince to get the same idea.
Absolutely. And I really do believe that God puts the same concepts out into the universe, and whoever gets it, it's up to that person to develop it and do it first. And you could be in Iowa, and this other person could be in Indiana, and it could be the same subject matter. And whoever does it first, and they always say, like, whoever says that joke on Johnny Carson or Jay Leno first, the general public says that's the person who wrote it.
Oh, one other thing.
Okay.
You're a young writer. I want to give as many scenarios here as possible because I
Okay.
really want to help the person watching or listening. You are an actor. You wrote a script, and you've taken it as far as you can based on your writing ability. So now you bring in another writer to polish it, clean it up. How does that work? Because you were the original writer, you brought somebody in, and we see this in Hollywood all the time. How does that work?
Well, if you're a WGA writer, but it kind of goes across the board. But the sometimes the WGA will look at the first draft and they'll look at the second draft and then um, they'll determine the percentage. They'll just determine who gets what. Usually they'll have written by such and such and such and such. So they have their own terminology in that. Sometimes it'll say story by this person, written by someone else. It depends on the amount of change it is, and the Writers Guild will determine this was the original story, and this is the story that is in the final script, and it's light years from each other. So they will determine what it is. But if you both get together and say we are both writing this, first of all, if you write an agreement out before you even start, even if it's not with an attorney, you could write it on toilet paper as long as it's not used. But you write it out and, and you say, whatever you write and you both sign it, that's what the agreement is. We're going to both co-write. It's not going to be story by you, story by me. Or if it's going to be story by you, but written by both of us, whatever you determine, you can write it out. And then that's admissible in court because you made a predetermined decision of what this particular thing is. So, and sometimes you can give your script to a studio. They can totally rewrite it. In fact, expect them to totally rewrite it with their people. Studio owes favors to who, this, that, and the other. Hey, I got a job for you coming in. Yeah, he thinks he's going to write it, but you stand by. So that's kind of a real scenario of who gets what gig and this, that, and the other. Because if you're in the Writers Guild, it means that if you're contracted to write that thing, you're actually getting health, pension, and welfare for that. If you wrote it on a speculative situation, like you didn't get a deal, you just wrote it, then you go in and the studio can purchase it, but they're not going to give you health, pension, and welfare because it wasn't contracted. If you contracted and you started writing, then you get all that other stuff. So there are ways of delineate how much you know wrote and this, that, and the other. And if a person just has a suggestion in the corner, hey, I think you should put them in a subway and do it. You know, it's like, thanks for the suggestion, but you are not writer on this thing. So you have to look at all that is a part of the writing process.
So we talked about how you can self-fund your own. We could do crowdfunding.
Hmm.
I think with the faith, your faith doc,
Yeah, or the faith faith. Yeah, it's called keeping the faith. Yes.
keeping the faith. When people gave money, they got a copy of it. Am
Yes.
I
Yes.
right?
But you were talking about crowd funding or crowdsourcing and this, that, and the other. And let me just I just put a footnote on that. There's Kickstarter, there's Indiegogo, there's a number of, you can just say crowdfunding and it'll come up. Blah, 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 blah. So Kickstarter is like all or nothing. If your goal is, I don't know, $10,000 or $100,000, and you get to 9,099, if it's not that number and over, you don't get it. So Indiegogo and a lot of other ones, regardless to what it is, if you say I'm trying to get $1 million and you get $900,000, you can get it. It's yours. The only problem in that is this: is they will not give you the list of people who actually they're people who gave monies and this, that, and the other. You need that list. You need that list because if you did a film and it was funded by Indiegogo and they says, okay, here's the money, but okay, can I have the list of the people? They'll say no, you can't have that list unless they change the rule. And you need that list because if you do such and such too, you want to be able to market it to those people again. So you need their name and their email address, at least that, because that's another crop of money for another whatever film or set of money that you want. So it's important. So what I do is I go to my website and I'll have a donation thing. So now I'm collecting all of the information. People are just, it's called opt in. So you're opting in, and you can do, and then so you put it through Mailchimp or whatever program you can send stuff out. If you just send it to people, they'll call that spamming, and then they'll cut you off and this, that, and the other. And you can't spam just sending out emails all over. But if they opt in, that's not spamming because you're saying, I'm gonna send you some stuff, so you've agreed that I can send you some stuff.
I didn't know that they don't give you the list because as you were talking, I'm thinking, well, if I'm doing a campaign through a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, usually I'm giving out certain benefits, right? You're asking, hey, if you donate $25, you'll get a bumper sticker. If you donate $100, you'll get a T-shirt. If you donate $500, you get the DVD. So I'm thinking, all right, if I'm saying I'm going to give you this, how do I give it to you if I don't have your information?
Some of those stop the levels of giving. If you give this, I give me $25 and I'll give you a pen. If you give me $10,000, I'll come cook dinner for you, whatever it is. They stopped doing that because some of the filmmakers weren't following through. So short of crowd for sourcing, I mean grants. There's all kind of grants that you can get right now. Our president put a hold on grants, even the National Endowment of it. I mean, he just put a stop to everything real quick. I hope it's real quick. But there are other corporations that give grants. There's entrepreneurs, there's females, there's people of color, different grants for all over the place. So I would look at that. And grants are something that you don't have to give back. But a lot of companies have an ascertainment period where they have to say, did you do what you said you were going to do with this money? And if you ever want a grant from them again, you better do whatever you said you were going to do with that money. So after you write a script, then you have to take out your creative hat and put that to the side because now you're embarking upon money world. And when you're embarking upon money world, money people want to know money facts. So they want to know all that. So I would write a business plan. And the business plan will help you too. you can go contract somebody to write it, but I would do it myself, because when you're in an office talking about X, Y, and Z about the film, you can say, "Oh, just look that up. Oh, it's on page 25. Look that up." That no, you gotta tell them. You know what they'll even say, "What's the deal?" And if you don't know what your deal is, oh, I haven't gotten that far. You better figure that out. So, and I'll say like a typical deal. So the typical deal is you have this business plan, and in this business plan you look up the actual deal. Let me just first say that there's an executive summary. If they don't want to read a whole business plan, most of the time they'll just go down the line and say, "Oh, here's the marketing part. Let me just see how they're going to market. Oh, here's distribution. Here's the company. Let's see who's involved in this thing. And I hope there's some good people involved who can execute this." So the deal. So the deal is, say you're looking for $1 million. You have to separate that million. You don't have to, but if you don't know where to go to get $1 million, then you should separate it into units. And the units may be I don't know, $100,000 a unit. But you look at how many units can you write. Well, you can't do over. I think the numbers. Well, it was 35, but I think they rose it to 40 units total. So you get whatever the budget is, $1 million divided by 40 equal like $100 and something per unit. So that unit is important because you can sell that unit to one person can buy a unit. Oh, I have 300,000. I'll buy 3 units. Or a person can buy 1, 5, 10, or all the units, but they have to be qualified investors. What's a qualified investor? You can't go to a little old lady who has $100,000 in her bank account and she's saving it in case she gets hurt or whatever, and say, "It's $100,000. You give me that $100,000." Because the Securities Exchange Commission does not like that. And you will be on the line for that $100,000 should she complain to the Securities Exchange Commission. So let me just say, a business plan is to a units as a prospectus is to shares. You don't want to get into shares and stock offerings and nothing of that, because that's too crazy. You want to just stay with what you are. That's regulated by the Securities Exchange Commission too. You have to say risk factors. You have to say, "Hey, look, this is a volatile industry. You could lose all of your money." You literally have to say that in the. It's not going to help your case, but you have to say it. That's why you see commercials for like medicine. And they say at the end of the person will say it real fast. You can drop dead. Your hair fall out. I mean, at the end of the commercial.
Right, right.
They, that's why they say that, because you have to disclose those kinds of things. So basically what I'm saying is, in your business plan, you have to list all the different things, all the questions that an investor would ask. It should be listed in the business plan, because if you're in the office and this, that, and the other, and you drop off the business plan, then they can go home at their leisure and read it and this, that, and the other. If they say, "Well, get back with me and where's your paperwork?" "I don't have any paperwork." "Well, get back with me." Well, by the time you do all that and write it and this, that, and the other, they could change their mind. You want to get it while it's hot. If they're interested, get it while it's hot. So you also write a deck. A deck is just a PowerPoint presentation. It has different slides on the deck. You're saying all of the different things on there. You're saying what the film is, a little synopsis of the film or log line. You may have pictures. I always do a poster. I do a poster because what is in my mind to the investor comes to life when they see a poster. "Oh my God, this is real. I love this poster, this, that, and the other." So if a person is not, if you want Tom Hanks, I think you mentioned Tom Hanks before, whoever, if you want Tom Hanks, I personally would not put Tom Hanks on that poster. I would put a profile, shoot from behind, make it creative, do whatever, because you don't want it to get to Tom Hanks and say, "Hey, Tom, are you doing this film?" "What film?" "This is you." He will probably not do it now just because you did that. But the poster makes it come to life. So you're getting all of the different things that you need. And they'll say, and especially if you're new and asking for money, who else can execute this? They have to have a degree of confidence that if I give you this, I don't know, $50,000, that you're going to make this come to fruition, and you're not just going to lose the $50,000. So who else who know in your crew knows how to do this well? I have a professional DP, and this person has done this film, this film, this film. I can rest assured, I can bet you that it used to be IMDb was for actors and industry people, but now people are hip to IMDb. They say, "Hey, what's that IMCP? Go, it's IMDb." Then they'll go on and say, "Oh, he's done nothing." Uh, if they pass, it's because they looked you up. Even if they Google, they don't know IMDb. They'll Google it and stuff like that. So it's important to have a crew, your DP, your producers, have a star if you can get a star. And usually if they give you a letter of intent, that just says I'm interested, subject to my availability and negotiations in good faith. So you're not even saying how much you're going to pay them. You're saying we'll negotiate and we'll figure it out later. I'm not saying I'm available, but if I'm available, I will do the part. But if you had that letter, at least they can say, look, he's got a letter from Tom Hanks to say that it's that and the other. So the key is to try to get that letter from Tom Hanks. You need as much ammunition as you can get so they can say yes.
And do not say so and so is interested if they haven't given you a firm yes. Because sometimes what happens is you have people trying to be sneaky. I got a film. I talked to Bobby Mardis. He says he's in. So then I go back and I talk to Robert Rodriguez. Bobby Mardis is in. We got Bobby Mardis. So then Robert Rodriguez goes, well, if Bobby's in, I'm in. Then you go to Robert Townsend and you say, Robert Townsend, Rodriguez and Bobby Mardis are both in. None of them have said officially that they're in, and you keep getting names. Now, what happens when Robert Townsend calls Bobby Mardis and Bobby Mardis says, he just told me about the project. I never agreed to it.
Right. Then you lose everybody. But one thing you can say, and you can be telling the truth about this, is that whoever you want, you can say proposed cast. Now, if you say this is my proposed cast, then that's a little better because they're not saying since it's proposed, it's not solidified that they're in it. But these are the people that I'm looking at, and so this is my proposed cast. So at least they have an idea of who you're talking about. And once you're doing your film, I would say if you want to do your film quicker than later on, then write something or do something that's within your realm or scope of doing. And when I say scope, is it a $50,000 film? Is it a $200,000 film? Is it a million? Or is it a $10 million film? If you don't think you can go get $20 million for a film, don't try to do a $20 million film because it's going to be all your life. I got this one script I'm trying to get done. And then all of a sudden you're old and you're in your grave talking about the one hand up with the script. It's like you can't, you do something that is achievable. So, and then I also would write a script. We talked about Robert Rodriguez wrote about what he had. If you think is a possibility to get $100,000 for a script, write $100,000 script. Don't go to the airport trying to block stuff and shooting airplanes coming down. There's stock footage for that. Don't try to, Wilshire Boulevard. Well, we're going to block off Wilshire. And I mean, and then you have to have police officers and blah, 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 blah. And falling from buildings at 20 feet. If you do that, you're going to need crazy budget and this, that, and the other. Do stuff that you can control that's a little bit limited because you need one thing to get to the next thing to get to a higher budget and a higher budget. If you do that, you can grow. Ava DuVernay started off with her first project with $250,000, and then she moved up to another one. Then she did Selma, and so grow. I don't think you can just start off thinking about $2 million, $10 million script, or even $100 million. You're not going to start off with Black Panther. I mean, you just can't.
Tell a simple story that you don't have many locations, that maybe you have 2 to 3 locations
Mm-hmm.
that you can get for free. So if you are funding, if we go back to you being the funder using your credit card, what locations can you get for free or can you barter for? You know, hey, can I use your cafe from 1 o'clock in the morning to 4 in the morning before your crew comes back in? We'll make sure that it's clean. You know, we'll leave it clean. We just need it for a scene. We'll give you credit on in the film. We'll give you credit on social media. We'll talk about, you know, your place of business. What again, as a filmmaker, as a little scrappy, independent, I'm getting this done filmmaker, what can you do with what's in your hand? So, who are the people that you know? Who are the people in your community that either have businesses
Hmm.
or offices that you can ask to use for free off the regular hours? You're not going in there while they're doing business. You're asking them, hey, can we use it from, you know, 2 to 6, midnight to 5, and make sure that you leave everything. You take pictures
Right.
of everything before you set up your shot, so when you're done, you can look at the pictures and put the stuff back the way it was so that you are in integrity. You ask that you make it easier for them to say yes the next time. So
Hmm.
keep that in mind. Do not, you know, a lot of times artists are not good at leaving things the way they found them. They don't clean up, and then they make it hard for somebody else who can come and do take care of everything.
Absolutely. And on a professional level, a place will ask you for production insurance because if you scratch the floor, break a window, do whatever, you have to pay for that. And so you don't want to be responsible for paying for that. So that's why you get production insurance. There's cast insurance in case somebody gets, sick or shot on the thing, and there's equipment insurance. There's all this insurance that will guarantee that even negative insurance. We don't shoot negative anymore, but if the hard drive crashes and all the stuff that you shot is in there, then they will give you monies to reshoot and this, that, and the other. So insurance is crazy important. But if you're doing a thing on a very low down, or down low, if you're doing a project like that and you don't have money even for insurance, you really do have to keep in mind that I got to put everything back. I got to be extra particular and specific about everything. That's why you do that.
That's right. And in that case, if you're not a detail person, get somebody on your crew who's very anal and detail and will put everything back. That's where your crew becomes really important. You
Right.
cannot do it by yourself. If your talent is not for details, bring somebody in who does the details. Make sure that you have that group of people who can cover your back with ease. So you don't want 5 artists in the room who are oblivious to what's going on around them. You want to make sure you have people who are really detailed, who will take care of that for you, who will handle the paperwork. If you are, you know, the director of directors, but you don't know how to fill out paperwork, you need that producer, you need that assistant, you
Hmm.
need that person who's very detailed. Because let me tell you, if you get into the Writers Guild, they do not play. I remember the first project that I was producer on with Robert. They made me do that paperwork like 8 times, and I am not kidding. They would bump it back and said, "No, you got to do it again." I was so frustrated, and then finally I got it. So I just, you know, these are the things you learn as you go and as you grow. You have to know what your skill set is.
The paperwork is so critical because it's a part when you do your film and you're ready to give it to the distributor. That's a part of the thing called deliverables. You have to deliver masters, still shots of the actors, production notes, the title. You have to deliver all this M&E tracks, all these things you have to deliver, and sometimes you have to pay for extra drives to give them. If you have everything and you just, okay, there's no more money. Well, if you can't give us the deliverables, there's no more deal. So that's why every stage there's development, there's pre-production, production, post-production, deliverables, there's distribution, there's marketing. In every area, the previous area, if you do it right, will help the next area. If you don't do post production right and have all your tracks and this and all that separate, your music cues, all those things, so you can turn it in, it's a bust. So every previous stage, you have to do that cool, so the next stage is easier for you.
I would also add to that, as you're talking, if I'm starting out, I would find out what the deliverables entails first,
Yes,
to give you the opportunity to know that you are shooting it correctly. That because if you don't have what you need to deliver the stuff, you're going to spend more money having to upgrade and go back to a post production house to get stuff done, and you're talking about not having a budget. So it's almost better to find out what the deliverables are, that when they take the film from you, that it's got to be in these dimensions, and this is the sound, they only use this type of audio, you got to make sure it's in so many tracks, and blah 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 blah, and it is very technical. And that's where you bring your DP and your sound person to say, okay, these are the deliverables. How do we shoot this to ensure that we have that when it's time to give them after we go to post, because
absolutely.
that becomes hell. One last thing about that, when we did the making of the Five Heartbeats documentary, we started, Robert was working on that for about 10 to 12 years. So when we started it, we had one editor. The technology was early.
Hmm.
So we had, I think he did it on Final Cut Pro, or Final Cut 6. It was a early version.
Yeah, it's probably Final Cut 7. Yeah.
And then we didn't get to it because of other projects that were being done. We didn't get to it for another 8 to 9 years. When we got to it, that stuff was obsolete. Some of the stuff was actually analog.
Yes.
So then it
Yeah.
had to be digitized. When the editing came, it was a mess. We were using old Mac technology for new Mac, and then we made the mistake of shooting more footage in 4K. So
Hmm.
trying to connect old analog that was digitized into 4K was a mess. The only reason why it worked was because it was a documentary. So if you are shooting a narrative film and you start 10 years and now you're trying to come back in and finish it, you are in for living hell, people. Living
Yes.
hell.
And what she's saying is, if this is the frame, it's 720 standard definition. If it's 72480, and then you went to high def, 1920 by 1080, and now you're going, which is like 2K, and then now you're going to 4K. It's not even on the screen. You can't even see my hands. So now it's bigger. Now they have 6K that they're shooting. They even have 8K and 32K. So I'm just saying, now when you talk about deliverables, and it has to be specific, for example, Netflix has specific cameras that they will agree. They'll say, oh, if you're using this red kimono, we can use that. Oh, you have a Black Magic 4K pocket. It's still 4K. It's still, we don't accept that because of the dynamic range or whatever. And so you have to shoot things that they're going to accept it on. because that's very specific. And even if you do everything right, you checked off every mark, that you still have to go through a department called quality control.
That's
Now, the
right.
quality control department will say, wait a minute, we got some digital hits right here on the sound. You got to send that back to the sound guy and fix that sound. Or they put the video on vector scopes, and they'll say the color is right here for the red, the color right there. It has to meet certain color parameters on this vector scope. If it's not, they'll kick it back again. They will keep kicking it back until it is correct. So you must do things based on the spec, based on it being right, if you want to get to the next department after the deliverables check off. Because you're not going to get the check unless you get the check marks.
Unless you're just uploading it to YouTube or Vimeo or some local platform. If you are looking to live have a streaming
Theatrical.
service or
Mm-hmm.
theatrical run, you gotta qualify that it has to pass the mustard. Otherwise, you're not getting it done. So
Right.
thank you. This was such a master class on filmmaking. I thank you so much. That was great from Bobby Mardis. Amazing information. And I want you to remember, when you stop waiting for permission, you can start creating your own legacy. So go write, go shoot, go act, but most of all, go lead. And if you still need a little bit more motivation, check out this next interview I did with indie filmmaker himself, Mr. Robert Townsend. He is breaking down what it really takes for you to own your own lane in Hollywood. And he did it beautifully. You can too. Check it out.